Aero-News Network's coverage of the 61st Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Las Vegas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
Are you stall smart? Ever since Orville and Wilbur took to the skies, pilots have been taught that the more airspeed you have, the better off you are. But over the last 100 plus years, we've learned that's not always the case. Take stalls, for example. The common belief is that if you have sufficient airspeed, the aircraft won't stall. The fact is, an airfoil always stalls at the same critical angle of attack in relation to the relative airflow, regardless of airspeed, configuration, or weight. Learn more at aspenavionics.com.
Avidyne is the pilot-centric innovator. If you look at Avidyne's 20-plus year history, we had the first moving map, full color, that had everything on it. We were the first ones to do a primary flight display for general aviation. Avidyne has lots of opportunities and things in the works that will continue the leadership role we played in the past of coming up with new concepts and always having the best user interface to them.
True Blue Power Advanced Lithium-Ion Mainship batteries feature proprietary nanophosphate technology. They deliver 3 times the energy density and are more than 40% lighter than lead-acid or NiCad alternatives. RTCA tested, FAA certified, available to OEMs today.
The dream is real, a truly affordable personal jet aircraft. The Subsonics Personal Jet Kit is priced at only $42,000. Kit plus engine is still under $100K. Add instruments, upholstery, and paint and you're flying. It's time to put your money where your bucket list is. Learn more at sonicsaircraft.com.
The Bristol Light Sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin Avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
Sandia introduces the new SAI 340 Quattro TSO'd airspeed, attitude, altitude, and slip. With integral backup battery, safety never looked so good. See it now at www.sandia.aero.
Based on the popular Sling 2 LSA, the Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight 4-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com.
Alrighty, folks, you know, you didn't get enough of us last year. You had to come back for more. Go figure. We are live at the 61st Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the MGM Grand in beautiful downtown Las Vegas. Believe me, it's an improvement over what we left in Florida, so we're happy to be here. It's been bright, it's sunny, it's kind of cool. Great restaurants, great people, great surroundings, and the city seems to be doing really well after current events. So, let's get down to business. AEA 61st year. We've had just a phenomenal amount of news broken yesterday during the NPI, the new product introductions, not to mention the fact that Paula Dirks has signaled her intention to eventually retire about a year from now. So we'll be talking about that a lot later on in the program. We have a first part of a two-part interview with Paula at the end of today's programming. Second part will be at the end of tomorrow's programming. But in the meantime, let's get some messaging done here. Is that a good enough segue for you?
That's a good one.
David Gray with AirText, you've made tremendous strides in building inexpensive, by aviation standards, accessible messaging. Tell us what's going on with AirText.
So originally when we came out with AirText, Jim, we had the standard AirText, which was just SMS messaging. Works anywhere in the world from any altitude, and it's very, very fast. So as far as the customer was concerned, it was an experience just like they would see on the ground. Very, very fast text messaging. So then we came out with AirText Plus, and AirText Plus allowed us to also do phone calls. So again, we were the low cost provider. It's 5 cents a text message. You can have 16 people on board texting at the same time. We have one configuration where there's 64 people texting simultaneously. Ooh. Or you can make a phone call for $1.60 a minute anywhere in the world at any altitude. So someone could be down in the islands, or we've seen airplanes over in Europe and down in Mexico, and they can make a phone call and always stay in touch with the people back home. So that's been a lot of fun. What's happened is this last year the product has morphed more into a data link, and we're seeing that the pilots are using the product for a lot of activities up front. So initially we thought, it's a passenger device, and now we're seeing it as a pilot device more and more. So what did we do? We worked with the FAA. It took me a year, and I was able to get my servers certified, and so now we can deliver digital ADIS up to the pilot. Significance of that is that normally what we have to do when we're flying is we have to wait until we're within radio range to get the digital ADIS information. That can be a problem because, as you know, during the descent we're really task saturated, and to have to listen to something that might take up to 3 minutes long when there's a lot of other things going on. Maybe we're single pilot, or maybe we've got a young pilot next to us, and we're just task saturated. So we can get that information. We get up to cruise, we can get that information, and sometimes that information is an hour old, but we can get that information, kind of preload our approach, and have a good idea what runway we're going to use. It's information Bravo or Charlie, whatever. So that's kind of neat. So then we took it a step further. We said, well, METARs are about an hour old. If I'm flying across country and it takes me several hours, I don't want to look at information that was an hour. I'd like to see information that's current. So we're able to get ASOS up to the airplane. And I just got back. I was up in Washington, D.C. I'm working with the FAA Next Gen, and AOPA is helping me. And we think that we can get 5-minute to 1-minute data up to the airplane. And so in your hands, you have relevant information. So this data link
That's a significant improvement, especially when you've got a hot weather situation at hand.
Oh yeah, there's things that come through. One time I was flying with a friend into Memphis. Surprised they had weather. So we were coming from...
When doesn't Memphis have weather?
I know, exactly. And so we were on a 3-hour flight from Colorado Springs. We're coming into Memphis. It just so happened that FedEx was having their big push, and the ATIS changed 3 times in that descent. And so it's very helpful to have it all written down, and you don't have to listen to the radio. You just get it. It comes up. It just takes seconds to get it up to the cockpit. So we took it one step further. We said, well, what else are we doing during the approach that's a distraction from flight? Most people that are flying a corporate airplane, they're making contact with an FBO. And so they're trying to say, okay, this is so-and-so, I'm going to be landing at this time, I'm going to need this fuel load, some catering, some rental cars. Again, this is the wrong time to be doing that. So we came out with a product called FBO Link, which is a free product. It works on our AirText. If you have an airplane that's got any sort of Wi-Fi, it works. And so we made that available to everybody, and they can text message to the CSR, the FBO's customer service person, And that can be done once you level off, because we look at our flight computer, it says, oh, we're going to be there at this hour. This is what our fuel needs are going to be. So all that information can be done miles out. You could be going across the ocean, you could be hours out from your destination.
Outstanding. Where does the inspiration for products like this come from? This is one of the things I wanted to talk to people about this week, because we've seen a continuous series of innovative efforts. Some work, some don't work. Obviously, you're working because you just keep improving and keep adding to it. But where does this come from? Is it more from a standpoint of your own experience in the air, or is it a situation where you're working in a community and they're able to reach out to you and tell you what they need?
Well, it's a little bit of both, but mostly from the customers. Mm-hmm. I've always had customer-centric companies. This one is just like my last company, and I spend a lot of time in the hangars. I meet people on airplanes. I fly with them, and I get to see what they're doing, where their frustrations are, and some things that could be used with some current technology that's available maybe on the commercial side, because we know, consumer electronics changes at light speed, and if we can incorporate some of that technology into the airplane, then we've done a good thing. AirTex by itself is, sure, we make a box, but the integral part is your phone. And so from your phone or your tablet, you're taking and you're connecting through Iridium satellite to that person on the ground or that dispatch.
The best part is Iridium right now is an uncommon value with tremendous capabilities, but give it another year and it's just going to rock everybody's world.
Yes, exactly 1 year is what they're saying. As you know, the next satellite's supposed to go up this weekend. Mm-hmm. Each satellite launches 10 more, each rocket launches 10 more satellites. So we'll be very close to, they say the 70 satellites will be up by the end of the year. They're saying everything fully functional by the end of the first quarter of 2019.
Pretty amazing stuff. I've been watching that project avidly from a number of standpoints, especially since we've worked with Elon over a number of years, and just we're getting all kinds of a kick out of what's happening right now with SpaceX and various projects. But Iridium chose well this time. They backed the right horse.
They did a good job, and the product is being endorsed by our government, by our military, and they're going to do phenomenal things with it. So we're excited because our bandwidth is going to expand dramatically, and the capabilities that we're going to be able to provide to people are the things that maybe we were missing in the past. We see a path where we will have email capability. We see the path where now you can use your own phone and not a headset to make your phone call. And multiple people on the airplane will be able to do this rather than just a single person.
What kind of training is required in getting the airplane's passenger complement up to speed on this?
Well, you need to have an app. So we have an AirTex app.
There you go.
And so you need to get that app before you take off.
Okay.
That's the big part. The app, we took a lot of time and effort, our engineers, to make it very simple. So it's easy, it's intuitive for people to use AirTex. So once they get the app on their phone, it's simple. The neat thing about where we're headed is you won't need an app. You'll be able to use iMessaging, the talk functions of Skype or WhatsApp. All that stuff is going to be available, and that's just natural at that point.
Interesting. The FAA has been at times just the best ally to this industry, and at other times not so much. How has your exposure been to the FAA over the course of this project?
Well, there's two parts of it. I would say that there's the old guard, the people that have been certifying products in the past. I don't know if you remember, but in the old days, Wi-Fi on an airplane was like, oh, the Black Plague.
Yeah.
We don't want Wi-Fi. It's going to take the airplane down. Well, now you know that people have Wi-Fi built into their. We were talking about Avionics before, Garmin. They have it right into their panel right now. Garmin uses Bluetooth. So when we came out with Bluetooth, they were kind of seasoned with that, so it kind of made it a little bit easier with us, but Bluetooth is actually a lower power. I still get some kickback from people, some people in the field that say, oh, I don't want my pilots texting. Well, if you know how airlines operate, they use a product called ACARS, and ACARS is a messaging system.
It's very expensive texting.
It is, it is very expensive, but it's very integral to provide to them what the airline wants to do as far as weather is concerned and some flight routing type things. We have some things that I hope to show you at Oshkosh and other places, but we see this all just evolving because the next gen folks have embraced this, and they're actually encouraging us to get this 1 minute, 5 minute data up to the airplane and to allow this pre-departure clearances where we think we'll be able to work with them to get it down to pre-departure clearances at non-towered airports.
Oh my, okay.
Oh, it's awesome. It is really, and I have to say that there is a new sense from the FAA of being partnered, and the AOPA are helping us partner with the industry to get this done.
Oh, there's definitely been some attitude change at FAA.
Yes.
It's not as pervasive as it needs to be, but one thing at a time. And let's face it, we got the camel's nose under the door here, so hooray. Where does this need to go from here? Where do you see, without giving everything away to the competitors here, but where do you see your best potential growth and product lines as they're being developed?
I think that the industry has been reluctant to make a decision because there's so many things going on and the costs are so high. So our biggest hurdle has always been, oh, we need some sort of internet. Well, once we get to Iridium Next, we're there.
Yeah.
So we have a path with our current product.
We've solved the bandwidth issue.
Yes, yes. And so we think that that's going to be a game changer. At Oshkosh, I will show you a consumer product that we have made that will now take this down to the Cirrus or to the Baron or the Bonanza airplane. So,
I had the Twin Comanches. I had the Twin Comanches.
Oh, absolutely. That's yours. Yes, I know.
There you go. Outstanding. Run me through a typical day using an AirTex, excuse me, an AirTex product. How it's utilized, where it's utilized, and how it affects, excuse me, good grief, folks, a flight.
Okay. So it starts on the ground. We actually have an app. It's a free app. How many times do people give you something for free? But I have something for free for everybody called FBO Link. So if you go out and get FBO Link from Apple or Android, you could actually start there. So what we can do with FBO Link, it's an app, you open it up, there's a weather section there. You could request digital ATIS on the ground. So, let's say you're going to a big airport, you can get that. You can get the METARS, TAS, and ASOS that I mentioned. If you're at a business meeting and you're going to pick up your airplane from the FBO, you could text message the FBO with that. So it starts there. Then you get out to the airplane, you've got AirTex on board. You take off, you get up to cruise. Let's say you're just single pilot. You open up the app, it will automatically tell your favorites. So let's say you'd like your wife to know, you'd like some of the people at your office to know that you're flying. Just by opening the app, it'll send out a message. It'll say, Jim is flying right now. Please respond to this message. That's so that people don't think they're getting spam. So now you've opened up a door for them to communicate. And so you might say, hey, I've got this phenomenal tailwind. I'm going to be there 20 minutes early. Now, if you get there 20 minutes early and nobody's there, that's a bad thing, But if you have, yeah, I mean, you like it the other way, where if you're a little bit late, but then they're there. But that may be an indication. I had a friend that flew the other day. He flew from St. Simon's Island to Addison, Texas. It was a 3.5-hour flight. Single pilot. He did a lot of business. He did 100 text messages while he was flying. Okay, $5, but he closed thousands of dollars of deals with just that. So it's not uncommon for people to pay for the boxes and the service in just one flight. And then, of course, when we land, we send out a message to everybody that you had sent a message that you were flying or had communicated to, that you've landed, contact you on the other, on your normal texting.
Boy, that's quite an impact on any single flight. Outstanding. And I love the idea of being able to send 100 messages and only wasting a $5 bill.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
Can't beat that.
Right.
Outstanding. Now, I see you brought some of the gear that you're using here. Explain how this is being utilized, if you could.
Okay, I'm a gadget and gizmo guy.
Yep.
So every year, if we're not making 5 to 7 new things, you know, I haven't really made my pay as far as I'm concerned. So the first thing I'll show you, because we have AirText is used on both yachts and airplanes.
Okay.
We made a small, this is about the size of a USB stick, but we made an extender antenna. So you can have 32 of these spread throughout an airplane. So who would ever fly an airplane? Well, Air Force One, or you know, a lot of head of state airplanes have a lot of different compartments. So in order for the Bluetooth to get around those compartments, we have that extender antenna. Well, what if your phone is you know, away and you're not near your phone? How do I know if I had a message if I don't look at it? So I said, well, there's got to be a way that we can enunciate. We have the way for someone on the ground from a dispatch to be able to send a message and light up a light on the cockpit. But if they don't want to do that, if they don't want to do an install, we came up with some new technology that I haven't seen in this industry, and I've been in, now it's 35 years. But this is a small enunciator we made. And what's cool about this is e-ink technology. So anybody that has a Kindle is familiar with e-ink. Let me just show you what that little component looks like. This is the e-ink display. So as you notice, there's no power on this, but that message, the last information that you were put on this enunciator is there. So we've said, how do we do this?
And that stuff is so readable. That's the part I've always, I still have, incredible. I mean, I have my reader and all, but the original Kindle, I mean, you can read that anywhere, anyhow. Right. The only thing you can't do is submerge the darn thing.
Well, we don't suggest that, no. But this is meant, has 2 watch batteries in it. It'll last 6 months. You can literally peel and stick this onto the instrument panel or back in the cabin, and you could see, oh, so-and-so has so many messages, you know, and then once it's done, it erases the person's name and the messages. So, well, okay, we do things on yachts, and also, what if you have more people or more information? So, I mentioned that we're getting weather up to the cockpit. From your destination, we can pull your weather, your destination location, and a little, you know, depiction of the weather, and what the temperatures will be. And these are all the people that have messages waiting. So this is communicated to the device. They have a Bluetooth radio receiver in here, right? And our box is a Bluetooth transmitter. It was certified by the FAA as a Bluetooth server, so it's pretty cool. But everything relates to your phone or your tablet. And just think, you know, I never thought I would have $1,000, you know, phone in my. It's a computer, but it's in your pocket. But this is so powerful, and this changes every year. It gets better and better. So it's an exciting industry. 35 years, I love it.
Outstanding. Where can people get more information on the product line, and especially how they can apply it to their own aircraft operations?
Yes. So the website is airtext.aero.aero, and then we also have another one, send.aero, which applies to some of the military projects we do, plus some of the marine projects we do.
So you're working in the defense industry. I mean, they've got to be looking at this like manna from heaven at this point.
We offer some things that whenever you go into a retrofit application, they always forget something, or there's new technology that comes out, and so you have to figure out a way to make this play in a lot of things. And that's the industry I've always been in, and I understand that, you know, there's a way to get there. It's just connecting some dots and making it happen.
And again, you said you'll have even more information and more to talk about at Oshkosh.
Yes.
We're definitely going to have to get together there again.
We will.
You always have the best toys. David Gray, we enjoyed very much hearing what's the latest at AirText. We'll look forward to seeing what's coming up down the line. And at some point, what we really need to do is take one of my videographers and run a flight with you and just see all the different ways in which this product manifests itself in the corporate and personal aircraft environment, and see what it can do for the folks that are currently trying to navigate their way from one point to the next and stay in communication all the way.
In a twin Comanche, or?
I'll take whatever we can get. We'll see what it. Maybe call our buddy Alan Clapmeyer and borrow an Eclipse for a little bit.
That'd be fun.
That would be fun. Alrighty, we thank you so much. We're looking forward to David Copeland with Mid-Continent next. In the meantime, we're going to take a short break while we substitute guests. We are live from the 61st Annual Convention and Trade Show, AEA, at the MGM Grand in downtown Las Vegas. We'll be back with you in just a few moments.
Think about it. Think about it.
All set. Alrighty, folks, we are live, resuming coverage of the 61st Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. We have David Copeland, Director of Sales for Mid-Continent, and we have so much fun trying to keep up with you guys because every trade show, every event, okay, what did they come up with? And I get this list of things. There's pressers, there's images, there's data sheets, there's this and that. And I'm just sitting there going, okay, fine. It's time to get a PhD in Mid-Continent or True Blue Power again because that's about what it takes. You guys are busy. NPI yesterday, a bunch of news, some really interesting observations on where Mid-Continent is going, where True Blue Power is going. If you could, let's talk about first, what's new?
Well, a lot of great things happening in Mid-Continent. I call it, when I give people tours of our facility, they're very impressed that we not only take care of the legacy things in avionics and instruments and power solutions, but we also are into lithium, as you know, with True Blue Power. So that division and all of our new products really support customers that we've had for 54 years, clear to today and into tomorrow with the innovative designs and our engineering team and all the things that we support for the industry. So, we've taken it really from the experimental aviation group and really through the commercial. We're really pushing into the commercial with some of our new products, like our TC2000, which was introduced. That really takes us up to being able to power, over 100 USBs on a commercial platform with just one single unit. So that was a really exciting thing that we've done as we push into and we listen to customers, and with the super success of not only our 102, which we lead the market in that, but also in our 202 and our single and dual ANC configurations, that really takes us to a new level of support in that regional and the commercial airline that we've had that success in. So this product right here, the TC2000, really kind of, you know, sets the signature of that in a 2,000 watt platform from a 115 to 28 volt platform. So
it gives you a tremendous amount of adaptability to platform.
Right. Also into a lot of new markets, newer markets, is expanding the dynamics of our company and who we're talking to, our distributors and our customers, and you know, and just talking to all those people through the years. You know, we want to keep expanding that footprint in the marketplace, and as you know, Todd is you know, very supportive of expanding not only the True Blue Power products, but supporting our customers for so many years.
Oh, he's intent on nothing less than world domination. Let's tell it like it is.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but but I think, you know, having a strong foothold and supporting our customers, and I think one of the things that is at the root of all this is not only innovation, but our customer experience, because what we want to do is reinforce the fact it doesn't matter if you fly a 172 or we're supporting you on a 787 with a product like this. We want to drive home the fact that it doesn't matter who you are, you're number one with us.
Outstanding. Tell me a little bit about the modus operandi right now. You've staken a claim in some interesting technologies, and I'm sure you've researched them carefully. I'm sure it's been one of those heart and soul discussions, but I can imagine, especially when you decided to really work within the lithium segment, which, as you know, had its good times and its bad times. What is the mindset? What is the process by which Mid-Continent True Blue Power innovates? Where does this come from? How do you develop?
Well, I really think a lot of that innovation comes from Todd. Again, is his drive to lead that marketplace. And as we started in this almost over 10 years ago now, in developing that technology of lithium ion in the marketplace, we found the safest chemistry, the best technology, most researched, and then we proved it internally that it could be with our TS835, of that being so successful and over 1 million hours of flying and proving itself with zero resistance. We've been educating around the world. I think our
that's
lithium,
been key. You've done a phenomenal job in educating the public.
Right, Lithium 101, which is on our website, is critical to that for the people that only have a reminiscent of some of the past and the safety concerns there. You know, we've really upped that game into educating, and we continue to, and we've scheduled many of those around the world this year through AEA and through EAA and all those organizations that allow us that platform to reinforce that. So I think the whole True Blue Power team and the company and leadership has really gotten behind that technology, and we spread it. And as you've seen with Bell and Textron and the 505, and also with Robinson and the R66 and the STCs we've got, like on the Dash 8, on the Caravan, and on the Bonanza, we just continue to do that. And we're working with, you know, over 100 OEMs. They're either looking at those products, testing those products, or flying those products towards either a TC or an STC on those platforms. So, you know, what we thought was going to be a crowded network, you know, it's hard to chase a leader. They're all looking to do that, but we've really kind of proven that we can make it happen. And of course, with the regulatory authorities, their comfort and their idea and the education that we've been able to reinforce to them, and the testing that we have exceeded in every parameter with the lithium products, has really helped us excel that and the credibility of the products.
One of the other things that I've watched you do is support aspects of the industry where product support, legacy support, and so forth were critically needed, and in some cases had disappeared, and you folks have stepped in. Excuse me. That's a critical issue for folks that are trying to keep certain boxes, certain products alive. Tell us a little bit about your work in that area.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to my theme of customer first. And the customer experience.
Even when it started with somebody else's customer?
It doesn't even matter. If you have an installation, you know, we've got you know, over 28 years in each capacity. We've got both on the True Blue Power side, we've got technical support 24/7 for that, and we also have on the MCIA side, on that support of avionics and instruments, we've got technical instrument expertise. We've got one-on-one support that we can travel with if we need to for installations and support on site, which a lot of people. Plus, you pick up the phone, you call us, you're going to get that person. You're going to be put into a call tree and all that. We have it both at our Wichita and our Van Nuys facilities to offer that 24/7 support. So if you are installing a new avionics suite and you can't get the tilt right on something, or if it's something that we don't even manufacture or support, we can still try to assist them with the expertise that we have, not only in our labs, but in our shop and in our production facilities. So like you said, many of the people in the MRO business and production have kind of shied away from that. We've upped our game, and we think it's really important.
Tell us about the Bendix King agreement.
Well, the Bendix King agreement is very exciting because this will be our 44th year of supporting Bendix King, way back in the Bendix days, and I remember going to Olathe.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And what is now, I think it's a kindergarten area. That used to be their facilities, and also as that has grown, and I've flown a lot with those products around the world, and they really are still a stablemate in that avionics arena. And what we've done is we've been asked to partner with them to support their not only legacy but some of their new products, and to sell both products and to support those as one of the 4 facilities that were picked of, I think there's 13 around the world. So of course they vetted and they looked at who had done the best and who continues to support the product, and we were selected, and we're very proud to be a partner with them.
That had to be an interesting process. Some of the folks that you work with, for instance, I'm dear friends with the Robinson family.
Right.
Back early days with Frank, and of course with Kurt and the gang now, and so forth. You get something done with them, that's an accomplishment. Frank and now Kurt, they're just really tough people to impress. Bell, not exactly falling off the turnip truck yesterday either. They're very tough customers, possibly some of the toughest customers you'll find. And when you're able to put that together, or deals with BK and so forth, that's a big deal. And more important, it's just got to be one of those things where you kind of look at it both ways and go, is it really worth it? Because these are tough customers.
Well, we always think it's worth it. We've been, those customers for us, the ones you mentioned, Bell and Robinson and Bendix, or all the others that we have around the world, we treat them all as the #1 customer because they all have something to offer the industry. I think what we do is we provide products that not only are innovative, but we support those products in that relationship. I really think it comes down to that relationship. If they come to us with a project or an opportunity or to fulfill a need that they have on their platforms, we're the first to say yes, because we have a on-site, as you know, you probably visited a facility and seen our engineering team. We have a great marketing team. We've got a great sales network around the world to support those products. And that's very unique, that not only we build it, we support it, but then we can service it in our facility. So I think that all plays into it. Plus, we're a pretty agile organization. Just under 200 employees makes us 200 employees, allows us that flexibility to take a project to TSO and to certification and beyond much quicker. Some of the companies that some of these people that you've mentioned have dealt with in the past can't even get through the paperwork in 8 months, and we can sometimes have a TSO in that amount of time.
How is your relationship these days with this latest generation of FAA and the latest generation of certification folks? Because it's obvious that something is changing. It's changing slowly in a few areas and much faster in others.
Right.
And with the amount of work you have to have done, you have to have noticed the kind of change that's occurring and actually been a part of it. What do you think of the current efforts by FAA and as to how they affect your certification efforts?
Well, we're involved with the certification authorities around the world. It's just not the FAA, but EASA and TCCA and all the other ones, all of the different things that are happening, whether it's in Canada or in Europe or in Latin America or in Australia. And not only the talent that we have in our offices, but being a part of the organizations like GAMA and MBAA and AEA, EAA, all those support organizations and all the information we get through them and with them as partners allows us to really speak and support them. And a lot of the things that like Rick from AEA would be working with, or GAMA, Pete and his organization, we kind of incorporate some of those things and support them to assist us in not only educating them about lithium and supporting STC projects around the world, but regulatory things like the privatization, we're very active in that. What's next? And after and working with the AEA board now, getting a little bit more expansive look at what's behind the scene to support organizations in the avionics industry, which we're very involved with, of course, and the changes that are coming, and to see the countries, with the ADS-B things that are going on now and what's next after that. So I think there's a lot of change. I think that it really comes down to the fact that we're very actively involved with those organizations, and we support it. And we also educate them, because there's a lot of change. There's a lot of new people in the FAA and these other regulatory authorities. And just when you think it's solid, it changes, as you know. That's what this industry is all about. But we're kind of that solid source. I like to tell a lot of our customers that when you come through our lab, that it's 25 and a half years average that technician has been on the bench at our facility.
Oh, wow.
That's a separator. So it's also the fact that a large percentage of our employees and staff have been there well over 10 years. So that consistency and continuity with the educating and seeing the same faces and developing those back to relationships helps us gain some ground. And also, we're not in this alone. We're to help the people overseas to gain. We're not in this just by ourselves. We're help everybody in this marketplace.
By the way, before I forget, obviously you've had a bit good grief. This desert air is a killer. You've been a part of the news in accepting responsibilities with AEA. With everything that you're doing, how do you find the time?
Well, I'm going off one board and going on to another.
So okay.
And so I was careful about that. But when they sent out the application, I did meet with Todd and the organization of his family, not only John and Todd, but what we want to do is carry on that support of a fantastic organization like AEA. And when Paul and I talked about it, and before I even filled out the application, and David as well talked about it, what can I bring? I'm not going to, just sit on a board. I want to be...
That board is not filled by people who don't do anything.
No.
That is an active,
working
board.
Right.
Period.
And I think you'll see from not only the show floor here, a sold out show floor, but in the future of what we're trying to do of educate, bring in new people to the organization, support our members that we have now, as well as listen. And I think that's one of the things as a new board member that I've committed to, is to listen and gather information. And then I can't go through this interview without saying that we really need to bring more people into this avionics. I mean, one of the things that I've already been asked to support is career growth, because people coming out of the service or coming out of school, we need to continue to not only backfill those positions at Mid-Continent, but everyone I've talked to here is short of technicians with all the things, all the shops, businesses on the uptick. So it's all very positive right now, of which you've been in this long enough as I have to realize, that roller coaster ride, we're on the way up, and things are really, really exciting for AEA. So I think they look at people possibly like myself to help do that.
Outstanding. And finally, what's on the horizon for both Mid-Continent and True Blue Power? Where do you guys go from here?
Well, I think we just continue to listen to our customers. I think both on the support side of it, we're going to grow our capabilities and our focus of MRO, which is a big growing piece of our marketplace, and take more of a solid foot on that, and not only with the Bendix King business, but more capabilities possibly in the regional and commercial line. I think the True Blue Power division is exploding with fantastic opportunities for not only power supplies and leading that industry, but power inversion and conversion. It could go a lot of different directions. I can't really tell you what's going on at Skunk Works, but we've got over 20 engineers working feverishly with a lot of our partners here and abroad to develop that. And also, I have to say, the OEM network and the MRO business is, we keep being tasked to do more things, which is awesome. And I can't thank our customers enough for that trust and the credibility and support that we have around the world. It's exciting to have that and to be able to provide these great products and make a difference in the marketplace. That's what we're about.
Outstanding. If I can ask one more question real quick. What do you think of the unmanned market right now?
Well, I think, I just attended the Gamma meeting in Washington, D.C., and a lot of talk about the UAVs and the drone market and the unmanned, and some of our partners that we've talked to are really, I think that's a totally new market. And where does that fit with regulation? I think is one right off the bat. Who's going to regulate that? Nobody knows. So we have our thoughts on that, as well as where we think it fits best, because we don't need to reinvent regulations for this marketplace. I think there is a place where it fits, whether it's 23 or 27 or what is, I don't think we need to recreate that. I think a lot of it we've learned most recently about transportation and the questions there. I think that transportation network on the ground is going to learn a lot from the air, what we've learned with regulation. So I think that's one that we need to get through, is define where that regulation is going to fall. I think our company is prime to support it because the things that we offer are more efficient, they're lighter weight, they're less cost, and we can produce them in high volume. And I think that market is going to be high volume. It is the future, and we're not going to forget about the legacy products, but we're heavily involved with some of those more robotic type things that are coming for the future. I really do think it is. As Todd stated many years ago, and he had on the horizon, we're going all electric. And if you look at Boeing and you look at Siemens and you look at Airbus, all of them are involved in all electric aircraft. That's where we're going. And you can see it from the power supplies, that's where we're going. The lighter weight, the more reliable, long-term value propositions.
And all this doesn't disappoint you in the slightest?
Not at all.
I'm sure. David Copeland, Director of Sales for Mid-Continent Instrument and Avionics. We sure appreciate your time. I really love the fact that I see you on the guest list because you're such a good interview.
Thank you.
And more important, there's never enough time to cover everything there is with you guys, so we'll ask you back in the not too distant future.
Let's do it.
All righty. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, appreciate it.
Okay, folks, we're going to take a hard break here. Crass commercial messages and everything all included. We sure appreciate you spending some time with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes. This is the 61st Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show. Excuse the voice. If you notice, it's not so good. We're dry desert air, cough, so forth and so on. So you're working with a handicap today. You've been warned. But we are live at the MGM Grand. We'll see you back in a few minutes. This is Aero-News Network, Airborne Live TV.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 61st Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Las Vegas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Are you stall smart? Ever since Orville and Wilbur took to the skies, pilots have been taught that the more airspeed you have, the better off you are. But over the last 100 plus years, we've learned that's not always the case. Take stalls, for example. The common belief is that if you have sufficient airspeed, the aircraft won't stall. The fact is, an airfoil always stalls at the same critical angle of attack in relation to the relative airflow, regardless of airspeed, configuration, or weight. Learn more at aspenavionics.com.
Avidyne is the pilot-centric innovator. If you look at Avidyne's 20-plus year history, we had the first moving map, full color, that had everything on it. We were the first ones to do a primary flight display for general aviation. Avidyne has lots of opportunities and things in the works that will continue the leadership role we played in the past of coming up with new concepts and always having the best user interface to them.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
Today's pilots must have power for electronic flight bags, tablets, iPads, and communication devices. The TA102 dual USB charging port delivers more power with less hassles. Available from your local Avionics dealer.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
Sandia introduces the new SAI 340 Quattro TSO'd airspeed, attitude, altitude, and slip. With integral backup battery, safety never looked so good. See it now at www.sandia.aero.
Based on the popular Sling 2 LSA, the Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight four-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com.
Build and fly with the most exciting line of kit aircraft on the market, the Sonex Aircraft B models. The B models offer more room and comfort, more fuel, more panel space, more engine choices, and the same great Sonex aircraft flight characteristics. Learn more at sonexaircraft.com.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
The Bristol Light Sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin Avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today.
Alrighty folks, we're back live at the MGM Grand, the 61st Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show. If we didn't bore you before, we're going to give you another try here because you got to listen to me, and with this voice in this dry desert air, it's a killer. We're here with Mitch Biggs, Avionics Vice President of Sales and Marketing. You've had some really interesting years building on a history of innovation, tweaking, fine-tuning, and innovating again. Let's start first with any one of the innovations you've introduced most recently, but let's do Avionics 101. What's new?
So great question. I mean, thanks for having us out here. I would say we're still helping people understand our new tagline for pilots that know the difference. So we feel that we have a lot of innovation out there, and really getting the word out that there are some really interesting gadgets that you can put in the airplane to make flying simpler, and really for those that know the difference. So this year, we've really fulfilled a lot of promises. We've extended the life of the EX5000, which is in the Cirrus community, by giving them ADS-B. So that software is 8.2. So we're working with the manufacturers that have the type certificate to push that out into the field so that they can get traffic and weather on their displays. We're also taking care of the R9 guys and giving them traffic and weather on their displays. So fulfilling that promise. And we're actively working on TAS-A, that software, to help some blended traffic and move there. And then we're relaunching soon that whole TAS product line, which really the infancy of the company. A lot of people don't realize Avionics been around for 25 years. And so we've been doing a lot of stuff, and that active traffic system is going to be relaunched into a Skytrax 600 series coming here real soon. So we've got some exciting promos coming out. We've been building out the sales and marketing team and really taking this product to the next level in terms of getting more time on it and really listening to the customers so that we can start making some more tweaks.
Outstanding. I got to tell you, as you may be aware, I spent several hundred hours behind R9.
Oh, great.
In a Cirrus. It was a really interesting experience because I'd started in that airplane with the early generation or first generation Avionics flat panel, and the switch to R9 to me was extraordinary because it wasn't so much about the technology as the methodology. Where making a switch on an approach into Miami, where they switch your runway or something like that, and you're in the clag. In Brand G, that's a lot of button turns and this and that and so forth and so on. And in R9, it was a whole lot less, plus the visuals of watching how the approach was changing and what transition you needed to make and where you had to turn and what to do. And then, of course, match it up to a DFC 100, and basically all you're doing is sitting back and watching everything happen. After you have the first few twists and turns, that's it.
Yep.
It was brilliant pilot thinking. It was brilliant methodology. I've never flown a system that to me fit the way I wanted to fly, the simplicity of what I wanted to accomplish so that I could pay attention to anything going wrong.
Absolutely.
And the difficulties of flying, especially in Florida airspace. Brilliant stuff.
Yep.
And I'm sure, I've watched that methodology now transition to what you've done with the IFD series and a number of other areas. Kind of amazing. Where do you go from here?
Well, we've got a lot of things on our plate in terms of what's next out there. There's certainly things outside of the GA market that we have under the Avidyne umbrella in terms of the unmanned market. We've got a lot of initiatives in there, especially with government programs. We have another initiative of bringing internet into the cockpit, so we're going to be bringing that pipe into the cockpit for the GA guys, not some of the high stuff that GoGo does, and some of the Part 23 and Part 25 guys. So we've got that going on, and we certainly have a lot of tweaks onto what we have on our existing upgrades. Our IFD, as you mentioned, is really that R9 technology squeezed into a little box, and there's so much growth there in terms of, we just released it into the helicopter market. So we've got the STC on the Robinson, the 22, the 44, and the 66. We think that coupled with an IFD 100 on the accessory bar is just a home run. So much easier for these helicopter guys to your point, manipulate the buttons and the knobs and the frequencies than it is to try and find a simple touch screen and trying to figure out how to.
I got to tell you, I've got a long relationship with the Robinson family. They were dear friends. Frank, his wife Barbara, and his son, and so forth. They are really hard people to impress. And that's the polite way to put it.
Yeah.
To get something done with Robinson is a big deal. They just don't compromise. That's a big deal.
Yeah, we have a lot of growth going into that market. We're really excited to introduce our product into the helicopters.
And this is where methodology is critical. In a helicopter environment, your hands are full.
Absolutely.
Turbine, piston, it doesn't matter. It's just a hands-full environment. There's just not a whole lot of time to divert to something and twist this knob and turn that and push this button and so forth. So the more you're drilling down the methodology and making a transition or a change simpler, the better off you are.
And undo a mistake if you happen to hit something because you got bumped.
No, pilots never make mistakes. This pilot never made a mistake. Of course, I know. Tom assures me you never made a mistake.
That's right. You can't miss an approach with our product.
There you go. Outstanding. Now, excuse me. This dry air has been killing me all day. Where do you go from here from a standpoint now of the IFD series? You kind of took a swat at the Gorilla, and the Gorilla's not happy because you have a really outstanding product, and the thing that's really driving you has been word of mouth. I get such a kick out of the beach boards, and you know how active they are, and a couple of the other boards where they're talking about this, and then you got to, hey, my 550's doing this, and so forth and so on. And you see this kind of stuff. That's a brutal, vicious, competitive market. Where do you take it from here?
Well, we keep applying pressure. I mean, some of the GA pilots are attached to their binky, and they have their GNS 430 and their 530, and they've maybe done a...
Isn't that a boat anchor?
and candidly, they've done an inexpensive ADS-B upgrade. But at some point in time, that 430 at 530 is going to start to get, longer in the tooth. The buttons aren't going to be as responsive. The screen's not going to be as bright. Whatever's going to happen, and we feel we have a great play as a slide-in replacement because we can put our 4 series or our 5 series into their 4 series and their 5 series, and there's no wiring required or any major surgery with the panel. So it really works out pretty well.
And you built so much additional functionality and redundancy in there. I mean, attitude down. I mean, in a navigator box? Are you really serious? I mean, think about the levels of safety that have been included in these airplanes now, where in the past, well, do we have what's back up for this and what's back? Man, you've got so much redundancy at this stage of the game, it's almost confusing.
Especially if you tie, the ARS with an air data computer and driving these autopilots that are digital now. It's just really, it's so much situational awareness that's in the cockpit from the weather and the traffic and where am I? There's rocks and clouds, that killed a lot of people back in the day, and the situational awareness that we're bringing to the cockpit is just phenomenal.
Tell me about the effort right now in regards to upgrading what is becoming Skytrax.
So, great question. We hitched our wagon to NavWorks for a while, and that went to an ultimate demise. And so right now, we're still actively promoting the Skytrax product. It's a healthy innovation stream that we have in our product map right now. In the interim, for right now, we've also had a strategic partnership with Free Flight. So we're going to use that box for our ADS-B in and out.
And by the way, feel free to give Pete Ring any harassment you possibly can. We just love busting his chops.
So we threw Pete a safety net, and so we're able to spend some time with those guys and partner. Because one of the things Avionics does is we play well with other folks. So we're integrated with the Link system. We're integrated with the the NavWorks box and the Free Flight box. We're integrated even with the Garmin box. You know, we'll show traffic and weather with the GTX 345 and the 330.
As long as they'll allow it.
We have to do a lot of backwards engineering, but we feel it's important for the customer, and we make that a priority.
Interesting stuff. You mentioned your interest in the unmanned segment. What efforts are you taking in that realm right now, and where do you see that going?
It's really big for us, and actually it's kind of one of these de-risked innovation engines, because we're doing things that we maybe not be able to do in the certified market in terms of taking our IFD and driving an autopilot and doing remotely piloted vehicles with our iPad and things that are really kind of cool that that you wouldn't even think about in there. But we're partnering with some really key players, and everybody's jockeying for position, whether it's the Uber taxi or whether it's Z or whomever it might be. And so, you know, we're not in the little small stuff. It's the big stuff, and really getting a lot of traction with government. And we have a whole dedicated team that is working on that and driving that business for us.
Dan is not interested in taking the easy way out, I take it?
No, he's pushing that pretty hard, and he's very visionary in finding out where the growth in the industry is going to go. So really, it's really fun to be on that leadership team and watch where we push the company.
Think ahead. We've got an interesting year coming up. The FAA has signaled its willingness to look differently at the current set of regulations. What does that mean to Avionics?
You know, we're pushing the FAA on a lot of those things too. A lot of the North Sea requirements and some of the streamlined certifications, and we're doing things in small slivers to help both the FAA and Avionics understand what is the speed to market path, and you know, things with our Autopilot, things with our ADS-B in technology and stuff like that. So it's an uncharted territory right now. I think they're trying to figure it out a little bit, and we're trying to figure it out a little bit, but we're both taking advantage of some of the streamlined approaches.
Interesting. The industry overall, how would you gauge its health?
You know, it's interesting. I come from a military background, and I was fortunate enough to fly the F-15, and then I got into general aviation almost by accident in an amphibian, and then I circled my way back to Avionics now. The GA market is, for me, as I look at the opportunity, there's a huge catalyst right now with the ADS-B mandate. So that's really, that coupled with, you know, knock on wood, the good economy. So we're really talking about a discretionary product for our customers that they're using in terms of airplanes, and then now they get a chance to, I'll use the analogy of your house, you know, they get to upgrade the kitchen. And so now the ADS-B may be the refrigerator in the kitchen, but they're also looking at the range, the dishwasher, and the cabinets and everything else. And so we play a part in that whole cockpit and panel upgrade. So for the next several years, that's really going to drive it. Then, as I mentioned, as the GNS product continues to get aged, we're going to have a play to be a slide-in replacement for that for a while. And then I think it's going to get really interesting with the digital autopilots, and they're getting to a price point to where it's just, you know, a no-brainer.
Outstanding. We are coming up on the hour. We sure appreciate your time. Mitch, more important than anything else, how can people get more information about Avionics?
Certainly come on our website, avionics.com. It's really for pilots to know the difference. We really appreciate all the folks out there that are talking all the great things that are going on with our product in their cockpit. Tell a friend. We've got a great ambassador program that will give perks to anybody that sways any buying decision over to the Avidyne side of the house. And so get in touch with us. We'll be in touch with you, and have fun flying our product, because for pilots to know the difference, you'll put your money in Avidyne.
Outstanding. Mitch, we sure appreciate your time. Folks, we are live from the 61st Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. We're going to take a short break. John Usakai from Aspen Avionics will be following. We've got a really great guest lineup for the rest of the afternoon. Andy Davis, Jeff Garassi, Angie Barker, Hal Shevers, and of course part one of our interview with Paula Dirks, from the president of AEA. We'll be back in just a few moments. We are live from AEA 2018. Alrighty, we're back. We are at the 61st Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. I warn you, we are having real dry desert air. It's just giving me the cough from hell. I apologize for that in advance. But more important, we'll let everybody else do the talking. You won't have to listen to me much. And for that, I'm sure we'll get your thanks. We have John Usakai, President and CEO of Aspen Avionics. John, you had some real interesting announcements yesterday. More important, stuff people can afford. What a concept. Tell us first about E5.
Okay, so at the show yesterday at the new product introduction presentations, we introduced our Evolution E5. And what Evolution E5 is, it's another extension of our product line, of our displays product line, taking advantage of our form factor. It's easy to install, and for which we have literally over 13,000 installed base on. And what it did was basically take advantage of some of the new certification rules using non-TSO'd STC PMA type of certification aspects to bring a lower cost display in. And we've seen that start with the Dynon and then with the G5 and now with our E5. As now with these new rules and how we're to be able to do things, the FAA is working with the manufacturers to provide safety improving capabilities for aircraft, where you can move the vacuum pump and put an electronic attitude indicator and DG in. Well, this is our play into that market because it's something that we think, and I think I share with many of my competitors, has opened up that world, that ability to add safety enhancing equipment of a glass attitude and DG, improve reliability to that market space. We also announced that we are working with TrueTrack Autopilot, and that you can get a TrueTrack Autopilot in E5 for the 172 for under $10,000. And I think that's groundbreaking in terms, not only in terms of bringing better technology to those airplanes, but also improving the safety of those aircraft. Now you're going to have glass panel equipment in there. It's higher reliable, easier to fly, a lot more information on it, coupled with a low-cost autopilot with a TrueTrack, and with all the safety enhancing features that come with it. So I actually think it's quite a big event in our industry that this type of technology is now making its way in at a level that's affordable for those kinds of aircraft.
That's a big deal. When you consider what we used to, and in many cases still have to pay for equivalent technologies and capabilities, 10 grand doesn't touch it.
Yeah, absolutely.
10 grand may pay for installation.
Correct.
That's a toughie. And yet, from the E5, you have an upgrade path.
Yes. So we went a step beyond maybe others have done, in that because we were able to retain our form factor and the advantage of that form factor, range from installation, all the good things we've been saying for many years, we have been able to work a situation that we'll be able to take that box and a person who wants to upgrade it to a TSO approved Pro box or a Pro Plus box to add features like angle of attack, synthetic vision, and broader HSI capabilities, broader display, hazardous awareness on their displays, that they'll be able to do that through a software change and an upgrade path to make that box a TSO approved box. That is something I think is very unique. I think we may be the first ones to do it. I don't know that for 100% sure. Mm-hmm. But what that means is to our consumer is when he or she puts this unit into their aircraft, and they decide that they need more capability. They decide they need more capability in terms of functionality, a better display. They don't now have to start over and rip it out of their airplane and go through the whole process of upgrading the airplane again, which, as we know, is
really
untenable.
Expensive
it's expensive, it's untenable. You take your airplane out, you're mucking with your airplane, you have all kinds of things that can go wrong while they're doing it. And we're going to provide that path. And I think we're the first ones to be able to do that. I'm not 100% sure of that, but it's certainly a unique thing.
Can't think of anything else that's equivalent.
Yeah, I don't either. But what it does for our consumers, it really, we're living up to our commitment to the upgradability path for people who buy our stuff, that when they buy our stuff, we will provide them a path that allows them to take advantage of new technologies. Their technology will not go obsolete. And I think that's a big deal in our industry, because with the FAA becoming more modern in their approach towards certification to take advantage of the latest technologies and the processes that have come into place, that means that we're going to have more change and more ability to update things. And I mean, you know how it is as an aircraft owner. You can't take your aircraft down every 6 months or every year or even 2 years just because you want to add a function that's there. It's not like an iPhone where you can just throw your iPhone out and pull out and buy yourself another one. You got to have an upgrade path, and I think with the new technology and the safety of the new technology, the FAA has caught up. It's caught up with that technology, and it's facilitating bringing this better safety technology in the airplanes. And I think that in itself is a remarkable event, and it's a remarkable event how quickly the manufacturers are taking advantage of it.
Outstanding. Now, what will that upgrade path require the owner to do?
So in effect, what the owner will have to do, he'll have to take his airplane into a dealer, and that dealer, under our quality system, will remove the unit. They will affix a TSO sticker on the box. They will put the unit back in, update the software, go through the checks that are required for our quality system, and then sign it off as part of our quality system. And that will then make it a TSO box with the ability to update as you see fit. We expect it to be a very small task and done fairly quickly.
Now, in reaching out to partner with TrueTrack, what an interesting company.
Absolutely.
Of course, Andrew's the most interesting aspect of that company. What a character.
He's a brilliant guy, though. The guy is
absolutely.
Brilliant.
But how do relationships like that start? How do you really vet somebody that can meet your standards, and more important, somebody that you can work with on projects that start here and obviously not ending here?
Yeah. So the first thing you got to really look at is that is that partner trying to do the same thing you're trying to do? Is that partner really truly trying to enhance the safety, improve the functionality, improve the funness of flying? Is that really what they're trying to do, or are they just trying to make a quick buck? Because partnerships are driven by the end goal, and the end goal is improving the safety of flying, improving the funness, and I always struggle with that word, but being able to have more stuff on your airplane, do more stuff is more fun.
Absolutely.
And you got to have that kind of culture. And I believe TrueTrack has that type of culture. They've shown that in the experimental market. They've got great stuff. Andrew's a great guy. He's a good spokesman for a lot of the technology there. And I believe he and his team are trying to truly make flying safer and truly try to make flying more fun. And that compatibility starts the partnership. And then you got to really look at the technology, because partnerships have to be done in being able to give a little and take a little. And I think TrueTrack is one of those people that does it. Certainly we've prided ourselves on being partners with a lot of people, and for the most part it's been successful. Not always 100% successful, but for the most part it's been successful. And I think it's created competition in the industry. It's made it better for our consumer.
Outstanding. The industry overall right now is enjoying some renewed and aggressive activity due to the ADS-B mandate.
Yes.
Which is great for everybody out here. We're all having a wonderful time now that people have gotten serious and realize, oh yeah, they're serious about the mandate. The question is, what happens after January 1, 2020?
Okay, so I'm going to take a step a little bit back. Is we got to be careful not to get complacent with what's going on right now, because I think it's an unprecedented opportunity for manufacturers and dealers to be able to provide an opportunity for a aircraft owner to upgrade their airplane beyond ADS-B, because we do try to be price conscious as aircraft owners. We do work very hard to not overspend on an airplane, but when you're doing this kind of functionality change, you're adding a lot of potential capability to your airplane. This is the time to upgrade. And as dealers and manufacturers, we've got to make that case to the aircraft owner. So first of all, we got to take advantage of this opportunity, maybe more than we are right now. We really got to push hard to sell more than just ADS-B as a transponder box, but sell ADS-B as a system. And what it can do if you add a new GPS navigator in, you add displays into it, you add an autopilot into it, and all of a sudden you've got a capable airplane to fly other places. Now, what happens after? Getting back to your question. It's a good question, and it's a scary question, I think, for a lot of people, because
at the same time, though, doesn't it present an opportunity?
It does. Okay, you're absolutely 100% good. You know exactly where I'm going. So what it does is now you have fundamental capabilities in an airplane that now you can exploit with different functions, different computing capabilities to take advantage of that information that now you have available that you never had available. We now know exactly where an airplane is, what it's doing, and things of that nature. What you can do with that information creates opportunities for new products to enhance your current products or come out with new products. And I think that's going to create some innovation. Next generation of communications, the CommPath, part of the next gen aspect, will create another wave of innovation. And I think that it's going to be up to the manufacturers to take advantage of that, to keep that momentum rolling, because I think the opportunity is out there. You know, this is not a time to be complacent.
Agreed. Once we get past all the fervor, there's not just that, and with the changes that we're seeing from the regulatory standpoint, and with the industry ready to embrace all that, there could be quite the culture shift in a couple of years.
You know, don't you think that's a good thing? I mean, we're trying to create a culture to bring new people into flying, right? This is a perfect opportunity to do it, wouldn't you say?
One of the best things I learned from XPRIZE is that the word disruption is not a dirty word.
That's a true statement. Yes,
I love the
true disruption is good.
I love disrupting industries that really need it.
Yeah.
While this is the most innovative aspect of aviation, airframers, not so much. Power plants starting to get
there.
Regulatory, some really interesting changes, but not nearly enough. It's avionics that have driven innovation, but in so much as they've driven innovation, they're starting to force the rest of the industry to meet that.
Yeah.
And that's the part to me that's exciting, and that's true disruption.
Yeah, so that's really a good point. So, you know, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So if you really want to change an industry, you got to start somewhere. And today it appears that the avionics world or electronics world is starting that. We're starting to see urban mobility devices and air taxis and stuff like that. And there's a void in that world in the electronics world. A lot of prototypes out there. Nobody's really thought through the regulatory. As you know, there's a lot of discussion about regulatory aspects of it. And that part of the disruption, I think, is going to drive structural, engine, and other aerodynamic type of disruption into the airframes. I think that will happen. I don't know when, but that type of transportation is going to create innovation back in, and we're going to push electronics innovation into that environment as well. So when you couple all of that in, which I have no idea how fast or slow that's going to happen, but it's going to happen, right?
If you've got that figured out, please tell me.
It's going to happen, and it's going to include these airframers you're talking about. It's going to include the engine man, and it's going to include the regulatory guys, and I think avionics may be one of the guys that are a little bit ahead of that because of what we're doing today. But I think it is going to happen, and you know, it creates an exciting environment for a lot of us.
Indeed. So what else might we be expecting from Aspen in the not too distant future?
Well, I think
that you can just share with just you and I.
No, I think it's obvious to recognize that, you know, the E5 and our new electronics architecture will make its way into our other products, creating opportunities for additional functionality, creating opportunities for upgrade paths for our current consumers, and making it affordable. I think you're going to see us now regaining some momentum that we've kind of had to put in the background while we were developing these new designs and these new things. I mean, as you know, we've not been as visible in the last 12 to 14 months as we may have been in the previous 5 years. And that's primarily because we've had our heads down and trying to determine our path with the future of our product line. We are also expanding other parts of our product line that maybe the GA don't see. Our connected panel product is getting some traction in the airline world. Our GPS product is getting a traction in the UAV world. And this, so you're going to see an Aspen that becomes a little bit more diversified in its market space, and the use of some of that diversification to integrate with more partners that may not be your standard partners that you might have expected out of us. And so you're going to see that growth as we grow our displays line and our capabilities there and grow other parts of our business. We're going to become much more than maybe we are today. And I think that's important not only for Aspen, but it's also important because it'll get us access to these new environments like the urban mobility devices, the air taxis, the delivery systems with drones and stuff like that. And we'll be able to roll that technology and that innovation back into the GA market. And I think that's what you're going to see us. And you're going to see us pretty active in the next 12 to 24 months. And we're all pretty excited about it.
When you guys are active, things are fun.
it's fun for us too.
Tell us about the Sensorion
Yes.
acquisition.
So it's not an acquisition, it's a partnership. So
Gotcha.
Sensorion is a manufacturer of drones and electronics for drones, a startup, not unlike we are with the background that we have. And we're working with them to develop, to integrate some of their flight controls technologies with our sensor technologies and our AHARs and our air data computer and our GPS to be able to provide the next level of potential avionics to the UAV market, because many of the UAV avionics and stuff is really in the prototype stage.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start trying to integrate that into the national airspace system, it creates a whole new set of challenges, not to mention regulatory challenges,
Mm-hmm.
but technical challenges too. You can't have a GPS that drops out.
No.
I mean, there's no roads to snap your picture onto, like
No.
you got in a car. You got to have high integrity GPSs. You got to have high integrity flight controls. You got to have high integrity air data computer systems that are robust enough to not only stand up to regulatory, but to stand up to the ruggedness that beyond line of sight is going to detract. We see our partnership with Sensorion is our move into that market.
Outstanding. Well, you're going to be a lot more fun to cover over the next couple of months. I look forward to it, both from the standpoint of manned and unmanned, and of course, I would assume Oshkosh will be interesting.
Oshkosh will be interesting for us, and we're looking forward to that. And it's always fun to come and talk to you about stuff that we're doing that's fun to talk about. So, as you know, I always enjoy these things, and I think that we're now in a space that I may be interesting interviewer again.
No, you always have been, and I sure appreciate it.
You bet.
John Usakai from Aspen Avionics. Folks, we are, pushing past the halfway point on our 61st annual AEA Convention and Trade Show coverage live from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. This is the Aero-News Network, our airborne live editions. We're looking forward to getting a lot more information out to you this afternoon. We'll be speaking with Andy Davis from Trig Avionics, Jeff Girassi from ACR Electronics and Artex, and Andrew Barker, speak of the devil, will be joining us from True Track. Hal Sheevers from Sporty's Pilot Shop will be talking about the Sporty's Foundation. And then we've got the first part of our two-part Paula Dirks interview to line up and finish up the day. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes. This is a hard break. Enjoy the Crafts commercial messages. This is Airborne and Aero-News Network and AEA Live.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 61st Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Las Vegas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
A new high-powered version of our popular USB charging ports. The TrueBlue Power TA202 series high-power USB charging port simultaneously provides 3 amps of power per port, offering an extensive list of single and dual USB Type-C and Type-A configurations. The TSO-certified TA202 powers current and next-generation personal electronic devices, including phones, iPads, and laptops. Available from your local avionics dealer.
Are you stall smart? Ever since Orville and Wilbur took to the skies, pilots have been taught that the more airspeed you have, the better off you are. But over the last 100 plus years, we've learned that's not always the case. Take stalls, for example. The common belief is that if you have sufficient airspeed, the aircraft won't stall. The fact is, an airfoil always stalls at the same critical angle of attack in relation to the relative airflow, regardless of airspeed, configuration, or weight. Learn more at aspenavionics.com.
Avidyne is the pilot-centric innovator. If you look at Avidyne's 20-plus year history, we had the first moving map, full color, that had everything on it. We were the first ones to do a primary flight display for general aviation. Avidyne has lots of opportunities and things in the works that will continue the leadership role we played in the past of coming up with new concepts and always having the best user interface to them.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
Sandia introduces the new SAI 340 Quattro TSO'd airspeed, attitude, altitude, and slip. With integral backup battery, safety never looked so good. See it now at www.sandia.aero.
based on the popular Sling 2 LSA. The Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight four-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com. The Bristol Light Sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin Avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
The dream is real, a truly affordable personal jet aircraft. The Subsonics Personal Jet Kit is priced at only $42,000. Kit plus engine is still under $100K. Add instruments, upholstery, and paint and you're flying. It's time to put your money where your bucket list is. Learn more at sonicsaircraft.com.
And welcome back. We're live at the MGM Grand Convention Center in kind of chilly Las Vegas, Nevada. I got here and thought, wow, this is colder than I anticipated for March in Las Vegas. But we're happy to be here at the Aircraft Electronics Association 61st annual convention, I think, Andy Davis.
Yep.
They've been at this a while.
They have, not as many as, I've not been to anything like that many, but it's also been a while for me. And if it's any consolation, it was snowing when I left home, so that's fine.
Yeah, we've had a lot of that here in the United States as well. It's sort of like winter keeps coming back and saying, and another thing.
And another one, yeah, exactly.
But we didn't come to talk about the weather. Andy Davis is joining me from Trig Electronics, Trig Avionics, and Andy, you've got a new program that you've set up that you announced the show. So tell us a little bit about your Express Lane dealer program.
Yeah, we're calling it Express Lane, and it's a way of getting dealers for targeted customers to give them a real quick way of upgrading their airplane to give them ADS-B out. There's a whole lot of different choices out there for different kinds of equipment and different configurations, and different vendors have different ways of approaching that. One of the things we have is the advantage of a transponder-based solution for ADS-B out that is a true plug-and-play, slide-in replacement for an existing transponder. In fact, for the KT76A, 76C, 78A, which is the most popular transponder out there. So there's lots of airplanes flying with those legacy Mode AC transponders that are eligible for a straightforward swap to turn it, first of all, into a Trig Mode S transponder panel mount. If they also are fortunate enough, and by the way, a lot of them are, to have a legacy Garmin navigator like one of the GNS 430Ws, does have to be the WAS model, or 530W, or if they have one of the newer GTN range, then there is compatibility between those navigators as a GPS position source and the transponder. Wire the two together and you have a complete ADS-B solution. The actual install is I hesitate to say trivial, because there's pre-test, qualification, wiring, post-install test, so there is complexity, but it's a couple of wires added and some configuration work required to get you going. So we estimate that using our AML STC for this process, the dealer should be able to do a complete install in 5 to 8 hours.
Okay.
If you're really lucky and your airplane is in wonderful condition and everything is just accessible, you might even beat that time. But there's some flexibility in there for pretty much any straightforward installation to be done.
So you did mention that it's on an AML, so you've got a whole list of airplanes
absolutely.
that are eligible?
There's about 650 types on the
Okay.
AML, so pretty much anything that's out there. The thing that's enabled this is some software changes that we've made in the transponder that ease that installation process a little bit, and also make it a much more straightforward installation of what's called the air-ground determination. There's a requirement in ADS-B that some kind of detector, squat switch, airspeed switch, whatever is used to indicate whether you're flying or on the ground, because the ADS-B messages are different. With our latest software in the TT31, a set of algorithms based on GPS data allows that to be done automatically by the transponder, and therefore there's no additional wire adds, cuts, changes that the installer has to do.
So where are your dealers here in the United States?
Everywhere. If you go on our website, there's a dealer lookup page where you can search by geography and find the dealer nearest to you. On that website, there's also a page that does the pre-qualification for Express Lane. The dealers are really pleased with this because it lets the customer go and follow a simple questionnaire that says, do you have this, do you have this? And it tells them whether or not they're likely to be an Express Lane customer. If they're not, then of course they can still speak to a dealer and say, I have this issue, I'd need to swap this out or change this, or I happen to know my altitude encoder is broken and doesn't work, and clearly these add extra stuff, but go through the questionnaire, get to the end, take you to an Express Lane dealer, and they'll be able to do an upgrade on that airplane.
So how is this affecting the 2020 mandate installs that you're seeing? Obviously you've offered this service, at least in my mind, to really help pilots and owners get into compliance by that deadline.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a well-known fact that there is a timetable issue. If you look at the rate at which the installations are going, they're going. I mean, they're going.
Yeah.
And divide out the number of months left until the end of the deadline, you can see that we're not going to get there. And there's going to be a shortfall in the aircraft that are equipped come 1st of January 2020. And so, so we did this specifically so that we could speed up that process. It's going to make it easier for installers. It's going to lower the bar a little bit to get the aircraft owners in, especially those who are just trying to get a basic compliance system. Obviously, if you want to add extra features to your airplane, more toys to the panel, change other parts of the avionics, that's not an Express Lane installation.
Right.
But for the guy who just wants to get compliant, this is the way to go.
Now there's a similar mandate in Europe. Are you offering the program, since we're on the World Wide Web after all, are you offering the program over in Europe as well?
Well, to be honest, there is not a similar mandate in Europe. The mandate in Europe is for the commercial air transport airplanes, the IFR traffic in controlled airspace. It isn't anything like the same broad mandate that there is here in the US. So the typical GA aviator in a Part 23 airplane is not worried about the mandate in Europe because it won't affect them. There is some voluntary equipage going on, and people who have the equipment clearly are happy to wire that up. And our STC is also validated in Europe, so that people can do it optionally in Europe, but there isn't anything like the same pressure.
I learned something today.
There you go.
Always appreciate that, Andy. Now, you did bring a couple of show and tell items.
I did, yeah.
Here,
I brought a couple of almost identical gold boxes. These are our TN72 GPS position sources. It's something we've been promoting for a little while now with some new news in the way that it's positioned and the way that we're talking about that. We mentioned ADS-B and the mandate. The mandate, of course, applies in specific airspace, the letter airspace, and in the Mode C Vale and around the larger airports. There are, however, some people who are exempt. One set of people who are exempt is sailplanes, along with balloons and airplanes with no electrical system at all. But it actually turns out that some of those people want to participate. A modern sailplane actually carries quite a lot of avionics sometimes. And a lot of those guys have trig transponders. It's very popular in that market, but want to take it to the next level and participate in an ADS-B solution, but they don't want to go the whole hog and have a full 91225, 91227 solution in their airframe. They just want to be visible for a traffic awareness point of view. And so the FAA came up with this thing called tabs, traffic awareness beacon system, which is a TSO C199, but is a lower level of compliance with the ADS-B rule set. And triggers responded, and we have a thing called the TN72 tabs GPS position source. It meets all of the tabs requirements. It can be partnered with your existing trig transponder, any of the trig transponders, and fitted to the kinds of airframes that are doing voluntary equipage.
Right.
Actually, it can be fitted to a Part 23 airplane as well if you wanted, but you have to understand that what does not get those access into the airspace because they weren't exempt.
Right.
There is another version of the same product, which we call the TN72X. The TN72X is essentially the same hardware platform, but configured in a different way. What it does is it actually allows the experimental and light sport guys to comply with the 2020 mandate. It's a $399 position source, which can be mated with any trig transponder and give an experimental airframe the full 2020 compliance. It's experimental only because at that price point, quite frankly, we can't afford to do all of the certification and STC work that would put it into a Part 23 airplane. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't meet the technical standards. Indeed, it meets all of the performance requirements. We just don't give it an AML STC support to carry it into those airframes.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because there's a great deal of interest in non-certified equipment like this going into certified airplanes. Is this one of those things that might be eligible for such a program down the road as you look at perhaps being able to put that piece of equipment in a certified airplane?
It might be. I will say that we have explored that with the FAA to see what additional evidence they would need, because you said uncertified, and of course technically I'd have to correct you and say what happens is they were certified. They were certified through an STC process and a PMA process instead of being certified through a TSO process. But a lot of the things that you're referring to, they still had all of the same evidence presented to the FAA from a design assurance point of view, from a technical compliance with the MOPS and so on. And the same would apply to this product as well. We would have quite a lot of work to do to demonstrate that. And I'll be honest, we priced it because we wanted to do that. We came up with a number, we divided it by the number that we thought we might sell, and said, you know, that will spoil the price proposition. Of course I could do that, but I might have added, and I might have more than doubled the price of it, and then suddenly it's not quite so compelling anymore. Because in fact I have other solutions in a slightly bigger gold box that are already fully certified, and so to keep some fresh air between the two, we just choose not to do that.
You know, things are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It seems like every year that we come to this show, you come with a box that next year's box may be half that size. It may be small. Yeah,
it's funny you say that. In practice, of course, the installers want flanges that they can actually attach useful screws to. They quite like D-type connectors because they have the tools and the crimps to put them together, and with fat fingers, it's the kind of thing you can build. So there's a limit to how small something can get. Certainly in this, even the width of the box is set by the width of the connectors that you're going to put on the end of it. So,
but where I'm going with that is that you're also getting into some of the UAV market as well.
We are, yep.
Is there anything you can talk about along those lines that we would find interesting?
I can talk along those lines, whether you find it interesting or not. So yeah, Trig has some products in the UAV space. What actually happens more in the UAV space is that our products are more integrated. So we have products which enclose. They have a transponder. They have an air data computer. They have a GPS navigation source. They are a full, obviously, transponder as well as doing the ADS-B out, all packaged into a single device, because then the UAV space can take one brick-sized item and say that's all of the certified avionics that you're going to need. And that's for the guys who are, of course, trying to play in the airspace. Not talking about the little camera drones where the rules are, of course, below 400 feet and in sight and so on, and they are not participating in the airspace. We're actually involved in some programs where it's not so much a little quadcopter or something. It looks a whole lot more like an airplane with a fuselage and wings and a tail, and in some cases more than one engine. And yet it's still an unmanned system, and they have certified grade avionics because they're flying airways. and being deconflicted with real traffic. And so there's some quite interesting experiments going on there.
But as we look at that smaller quadcopter space, and I know that the FAA is really interested in being able to know what aircraft that is and who owns it and all of those things. Are those things that you see coming down the road for companies like yours to be able to play in that market?
I'm going to be honest and say no.
Okay.
We see that for the very small sector, it's going to be different technology. The technology that's been deployed for surveillance of aircraft and communicating with aircraft is really fit for purpose for that, but is less obviously fit for purpose for the for that low altitude drone market. You wouldn't have the same coverage, you wouldn't have the same access, and in fact you do a lot better by looking at alternative technologies. There's quite a few projects going on using different bands, RF bands with different technologies, including there are vehicle to vehicle technologies being deployed at higher frequencies, which they're talking about using for the drones. The kinds of things that they're trying to use for self-driving cars to avoid each other, they can also use for drones to avoid each other in the low-level airspace. And we actually see there being those low-altitude air vehicles using their own network, speaking to each other, much more like cell phone technology, much more like that kind of thing. Occasionally for a transit or for a larger drone where you're going to pop up into airspace where you're going to meet civil aircraft. Now you need to interoperate and interact with the civil aircraft, and so that will then use more conventional technologies, 1090 megahertz, 978 megahertz that we're familiar with. Whether that's done directly from the airframe or by proxy using a TISB type service, ADSR type service, that's still being discussed.
There's always going to be more to discuss.
There certainly is.
But we are out of time, Andy, and I really appreciate you taking some time to stop by and chat with us. Always interesting, and we'll see you around the place.
Yes, indeed.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk with Jerry Garacci. He's the Director of Aviation Sales for ACR Electronics. That's coming up for you next from the MGM Grand Convention Center in Las Vegas, Nevada on the Aero TV network. We'll be right back. And we're back at the MGM Grand Convention Center in Las Vegas, Nevada on the Aero TV network. I'm Tom Patton, happy to be with you. My guest for this segment is Jeff Geraci. He's the Director of Aviation Sales for ACR Electronics. And Jeff, first of all, thanks for joining us. And,
well, it's my pleasure to be here very much.
Taking a little time to talk to us about your ELT. And ELT technology has come a long way in the past several years. Tell us about what you've brought to show us today.
Well, today I have ELT 4000, and yes, ELTs have come a long way over the last few years. Traditionally, in the beginning, they were alkaline batteries, and then they transitioned to lithium batteries because they required more power to actually transmit to a satellite, as opposed to in the early days they were just radios. And recently, lithium batteries have experienced, the usual things we've seen on YouTube videos, and also there's been some incidents on aircraft where we've had lithium batteries have thermal runaway, and the FAA has been working to find a way to mitigate those risks, and they've come up with some different parameters for lithium batteries that you have to meet, and they're very stringent and expensive to have an ELT that meets the new special conditions for non-rechargeable lithium batteries is a technical term for it. So ELT 4000 was developed really in record time, 12 months start to finish, which is a very, very short development cycle for such a complex TSO product. And what it brings to the table is that this has now gone back to alkaline batteries, which were originally not available to be used with a SATCOM device. And how we've done this is we've used more cells, and we have a patented battery management technology that allows us to harness all the power of an alkaline system. And we also have a very efficient board section or radio section. Then that efficiency, coupled with the battery management power that we have, allows us to build an actual alkaline ELT that has a 5-year battery life, just like a lithium product. So we're very excited about it. There were 3 of our customers that build business jets, and these are the biggest and best business jets in the world. They had a need. They could not go further in their programs, their certification programs, because they had lithium compliance issues. This answered that need very elegantly and for less cost than what our typical lithium product would be. So we met a need, solved some pain, and did it at cost savings for our customers.
For the people who are truly new to this industry, explain a little bit how an ELT works.
So an emergency locator transmitter is a post-mishap event product. So it's not meant to do anything while it's in flight. It has a G switch, so it is considered an automatic device. So when we have a mishap and there was some sort of impact, the G switch will sense that motion, and it will go ahead and broadcast to the COSPAS-RSAT satellite system the registration number, the location of the aircraft. It will go to the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center. They will determine who it is, where it is, and what the best equipment would be to effect that rescue. So it is a device that's used and is carried on every aircraft. As long as it has 2 people or more, it'll always have an ELT. So it is a true rescue device for aircraft, both fixed wing and rotor wing.
Now, most pilots of my age recognize the old ELTs that broadcast on 121.5, but with the advent of satellite technology, that whole system has gone away. Is the industry now fully switched over from the old analog 121.5 ELT to the new satellite ELTs?
It's an area of contention, if you will, and the 121.5, although it is not being monitored, it is still legal in the United States to have a 121.5 and be compliant. No one's listening, but they haven't forced people to remove that from their aircraft and go to a 406. There aren't many of these left still, but there are still some pilots flying with them. Most everyone has made the transition to 406 because they want to have a monitored frequency in case there's a mishap. So I think that if we didn't have the ADS-B mandate, we would have seen a mandate come from the FAA saying, okay, let's go ahead and remove 121.5 and mandate 406. I feel that they didn't want to have both those mandates together and put that financial burden on the pilot community. So they let that one go. But I can tell you that through attrition, these are old units. all we can do is provide batteries for them. That a lot of those are going away, and I would say that toward the end of this decade that you'll see most of those are off the aircraft.
One of your other news releases from this week talks about a personal ELT for passengers.
A personal locator beacon, and I apologize I don't have one, but it's a very small device, and it is basically transmits on the same frequency and the same Cost-Best SARSAT network as an ELT does. And it's a personal locating beacon. So this beacon is made for a person. I would carry it on me, and I would use it for boating. I would use it for skiing, snowmobiling, any outdoor activity where I might be in danger if there was a physical a problem with you while you're doing the activity. So it requires you to push a button. It once again goes out on the same network. Goes to the Air Force, they check to make sure it's a real deal, a real emergency, and then once again they effect the rescue with the applicable equipment for the job.
And how affordable is that for an individual? Because an ELT for an airplane, while it's a necessary piece of safety equipment, can be an expensive proposition. Is it something that you're finding that people are willing to shell out a couple of $300 to be able to have that level of safety if they engage in those kinds of activities?
Oh, absolutely. So the retail price is $259 to $269 depending on the model for a personal locating beacon. And let's say at other shows such as Oshkosh, where it's a more general aviation population, you'll find pilots that have 121.5, but yet they want to have a 406 beacon. Those two products put together, now you're on the network with 406. So it's a way to mitigate only having 121.5 at a very, very low cost. And plus, when you purchase the beacon, not only for aircraft, you can also use it with boating and other activities. So it has more applicability to other scenarios.
Where is this technology going? If you could look down into a crystal ball and see, is the satellite delivered technology for emergency location kind of the pinnacle of where it's going to be, or is there innovation coming down the road in this kind of hidden, people don't want to think about it technology?
Absolutely. So what we have is Malaysia 370. So we have an aircraft that's flying across the Indian Ocean, and we lose it. We've landed people on the moon. We've accomplished great things as Americans and as people of the world. So there has to be a way for us not to lose aircraft flying in our own atmosphere. So where we're going now is that ELT will transition to aircraft tracking. So there's already an ICAO mandate. There's things that are happening and systems that are being developed where aircraft will be tracked worldwide, real time, all the time. And then we'll have a distress tracking element to it. When it goes into distress, it'll start transmitting more frequently, and as it goes into a further distress, it will transmit the voice recorder and all the applicable data from the cockpit, so we don't need to find the black box. So at that point, we'll see perhaps ELT will transition to a post-mishap device, and ELT, along with other systems, will be an actual in-flight device to monitor the flight at all times and make sure that no aircraft is ever lost again. And that's a real product. These are real products that are happening and will be delivered around 2021.
So does that then tie in with the ADS-B satellite delivered navigation part of it as well?
Absolutely. So ADS-B provides the non-distressed or normal tracking that will be required to meet the GADS requirement. So then what will happen then is that we'll have other devices that will autonomously detect distress and start transmitting other ways to other people so that they can coordinate rescues that way. So it's all together.
Will that flight tracking technology filter down to the general aviation segment of the industry?
I can't see how it doesn't. So perhaps there's a break point when you have a very small aircraft that's truly IFR only, but all VFR aircraft, I believe, will have this global tracking system, so that we don't need to look for it. It'll tell us when it has an issue. The aircraft will actually transmit to us when there's an issue, instead of waiting for the event and then going and finding the aircraft. I believe that.
But then you have to overcome the issue that some, at least business aircraft operators have talked about aircraft tracking. They want to be the non-bar airplanes. They don't want you to know where their clients in the back of the airplane are going or who they might be. Is that part of the equation that's being worked on?
Absolutely, you would have there's many different aspects of this. So there's legal, there's pilot unions, there's quiet birds, that don't want to be tracked. There's a whole slew of legal issues that have to be sorted out. But if we look at the aircraft that are for carriage of civilians, I think that all those aircraft will be tracked, but we will have exceptions. There's no doubt that there will be ways to go quiet if you want to, but it should be a system that cannot be circumvented by your typical civilian pilot on a transport level aircraft. So those legal issues have to be worked out, and I'm sure it'll take quite some time for that to happen, right?
Do you see the mandate for the ELT technology coming after the ADS-B issue is kind of resolved and people have taken care of that equipage?
We see Canada moving toward a mandate. There's been more language, and they're moving. What I believe they'll have a mandate to remove all 121.5 and go to 406. The United States would then be the last country that does not have a mandate for 406 beacons. We're not able to repair the old beacons. They're coming off the aircraft. I can't answer the question definitively if we would see a mandate after ADS-B. I think most of the ELTs through attrition would have come off the aircraft.
We had a comment from one of our viewers who's watching live online and asks if they can expect to see the personal ELT being useful for the powered paraglider pilot.
A PLB for, yes, I would absolutely see it. It's a very small device. It's just a couple inches tall, and the device would be easy to carry. It's often found in vests, life vests. That would be a very good fit, and I think that they should have it. They're often low and slow over trees, and this would be a really good addition to any safety kit for that type of aircraft.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jeff. We're out of time. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Anything else you'd care to mention before we get out of here?
No,
I cover it all?
I think you did an excellent job of covering it. I'm just pleased to be here with everyone at AEA, and it was really, really exciting for us to introduce the CLT 4000 and to help people out with a pain point in the industry.
Great. Well, Jeff, thanks very much. We appreciate your time. That's Jeff Gerasi. He is the I need to look you up here again. The Director of Aviation Sales for ACI Electronics with the Artex ELT system. We're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk with the man with the hat, Andrew Barker, President of TrueTrack Flight Systems. That's coming up for you next from the MGM Grand Convention Center in Las Vegas, Nevada on the Aero TV network. We'll be right back. live on Aero TV. I'm Tom Patton. Thank you very much for joining us at the AEA's 61st Annual Convention, live on the internet. You know, it used to be live on TV, Andy.
It's close enough.
Well, it is TV these days. I mean, who's watching that over-the-air stuff
True
anymore?
story. True story.
Anyway, we're going to chat for a little bit with Andrew Barker. He's the president of TrueTrack Flight Systems. Andy, which do you prefer?
Andrew, actually.
Andrew,
yeah,
you do?
Or Drew.
Or Drew. Well, say I had Andy Davis from Trig up here a while ago.
Yeah, know Andy well.
So now it's, you know.
The only time I've ever gone as Andy is at Halloween parties when I dressed as Andy from Toy Story.
Okay.
No, and
I'll bet you did that very well. And my wife's name is Andy too, so we won't talk about that very much. Anyway, autopilots. A couple of years ago, you started out with a project to put, for lack of a better term, non-certified autopilot in a certified airplane. What's been the evolution, and where are we now with this?
It's a good term. I'm going to stop you just a little bit there. It is a certified autopilot, but it wasn't certified before. So that's a little bit of a misnomer in the industry, is that there's a lot of folks that are saying these are non-certified things. They're certified, but using maybe non-traditional pathways. So like the new G5 from Garmin, the Dynon stuff, the TrueTrack stuff, these are all certified avionics, but in a much less traditional pathway on that. And so the industry kind of isn't sure how to call it, what to call it. So the TrueTrack is a PMA'd autopilot, and then we have an STC for the installation. We have an AML STC. So anyway, so it's just, you know, it's based on our traditional vision autopilot that we've been selling in the experimental world for many, many years. And like you said, here several years ago, we kind of started down that pathway, and we worked with EAA. They were our partner on getting all this done. EAA's real goal in this process was to bring affordable autopilots to general aviation, to the light aviation market. You know, the folks with Bonanzas and stuff like that, generally speaking, are looking for autopilots that are quite a bit more capable. Things like the STEC 55X traditionally. Now Genesis has some newer products that kind of fit that bill a little bit better. We kind of designed this product for that more entry-level market, much like where we started in the experimental world with the Vision and DigiFlight 2 autopilots, in that airframe value of $30,000 to $50,000 approximately. We go above that and below that, of course, but so we were trying to really fill that entry-level market with a product that added a lot of safety to these aircraft that haven't had the safety of an autopilot.
So where are you now with the process of bringing this equipment into a retrofit market?
Right. So as of July last year, we were approved for the 172 and the 177. That was actually a subset of the 172s. Since that time, we've worked really hard to add more aircraft to the AML. So we now cover all 172, all 175, all 177, all PA-28 and all PA-32s. That's 65 models total there, and if my calculations are correct, somewhere around 60,000 aircraft that are covered under those STCs. We're working really hard right now on the 180, 182, and 185s. We've got a Mooney sitting in our facility, awaiting engineering time to get it done. And then Bonanzas are standing at the door, knocking every single day, please let us in. So we'll be getting into the Bonanzas here later this spring.
The V-tail or the straight tail?
Actually, we're planning to tackle all of them.
Some of both.
Then following that, we'll do things like Grummins, and maybe eventually later on in the year get into some of the light twins even.
So what does it take to add an airplane to the AML? What's that process like?
Actually, not as difficult as one might assume. Because the autopilot controller has all the software built in to handle an extremely wide range of aircraft, it's really designing the servo installation. So we got to design the servo installation, we got to document it obviously, and then we got to do some flight testing in the aircraft to verify that the autopilot still does what we expect it to do and want it to do, and to be able to provide the customer, here's the settings you need for that aircraft. So it takes us a little longer than I wish, but on the order of a couple of months, 2 to 3 months to add a group of aircraft to the AML.
What got you into this market in the first place? What made you think, you know, we've got this really great little product, and I can kind of see it as I'm asking the question, saying, look at all these airplanes that I can't put this in right now. How do I get there?
That's actually really, really close. So a little history about me and TrueTrack. I've been at TrueTrack for 18 years now, and I decided when I was a fairly young employee at the company that TrueTrack should have a certified autopilot. Well, two owners of the company at the time really, the market was quite different, the FAA was quite different, and they told me it was impossible. And I didn't believe them. And so I started doing some little work here and there to put things in place. And then things really did start to change in the FAA and in the industry that allowed some of this stuff to happen. One of the really big catalysts was the EAA Dynon STC of the D10A.
Right.
The commercial parts approval of that product kind of paved the way for what now a lot of us are doing. There's also a lot of standards that were written, ASTM standards that were written by the industry, by Garmin, TrueTrack, Dynon, a lot of these companies that are now using these standards for these non-traditional pathways on certification. So it's been 15 years in the making. The last 4 or 5 years, a whole lot of personal time and effort in it. And that's actually one of the reasons I ended up buying TrueTrack, was because I wanted to certify the Autopilot and believed that it could be done. So 15 years and 15 years of life.
A 15-year overnight sensation, as they say.
Yes, of course.
And I'm reminded of the old commercial, I liked it so much, I bought the company. So
that's pretty much true. That's pretty much how the story of TrueTrack goes right now.
We've got a little time, Andrew, so let's talk about kind of where this autopilot technology is going. I mean, I mentioned though I was speaking with Andy Davis from Trig, and their components are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and things are happening in that area. Is the same thing happening in autopilots, where eventually it's something that you could almost program with your iPad and have it hidden in the panel somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. The autopilot interface can be done from anywhere realistically. We're working on some interface stuff with the folks at Aspen, maybe adding some more capabilities there to do some more autopilot control from the PFD. In the experimental world, we already do that quite a bit.
Right.
We interface with Grand Rapids, Dynon, basically any company out there that makes an EFIS, Garmin, we can interface with. And in a lot of those cases, the autopilot controller actually doesn't require panel real estate, and you can control it completely remotely. But one of the big advances for us is the advances in the gyros, the solid state rate gyros we use, as well as the pressure transducers. Those get smaller, cheaper, and better fast. And I believe that's driven by the cell phone market realistically, because every cell phone now has gyros and pressure transducers built in. So just by sheer volume of the benefit we get out of those things is that we can use those low cost, higher precision gyros for the autopilot.
Where is autopilot technology going as far as a safety device?
We've really focused on the safety of an autopilot. Traditionally, autopilots are viewed as kind of dangerous devices to have in the aircraft. They are on the primary control, so you really worry about failure of the autopilot and things like that. But in this case, we designed the system so that we removed a lot of those failure possibilities. Our servos have no intelligence. There's no software in them. They can't do anything on their own. There's not a single component failure that can happen in the servo that can make it run uncommanded. And we've really worked hard at designing our system to be simple, yet complex at the same time. And that's one of the reasons, again, we were able to take advantage of those new certification pathways, is trying to make a simple system that has capability. This kind of sounds strange.
So what are you focusing on here at AEA this year?
Big things at AEA this year are really twofold. Number one, the Aspen interface is something we're really excited about. Aspen introduced their new E5 at under a $5,000 price point. You take that, you couple it with the Vision Autopilot, you've got a $10,000 PFD HSI and Autopilot. This is something that is still today virtually unheard of. You know, we're really hoping to see some $15,000 installed prices on those two systems combined, plus interface with whatever GPS navigator you might have in the panel as well. So that's one, we're really excited about that. Two is we're really excited about the time to actually sit down and talk with some of the new dealers. We're adding lots and lots of dealers. The certified market is brand new for us. So the ability to interface with the dealers and add new dealers. We also announced at the show we're working on a premier dealer network where the dealers can take additional training courses and things from us, and we can kind of tout them as, hey, these guys have this additional training, maybe they can do that faster install, they can do a more low cost or you know, a better install than someone else might be able to. So working on developing that dealer program is another really, really important thing for us.
Let's talk about that G5 interface for just a moment, because it's kind of an interesting proposition to be able to have that kind of a price point for equipment that 5 years ago was out of the reach of most general aviation pilots. How was it working, first of all, with Aspen? I know you're going to say good things about Aspen.
Well, of course, they're great folks, we love them.
They're great folks, but what were kind of the technological things that you worked through to make sure that your Autopilot would talk to the G5 system?
One of the really important things for us in the E5 interface and the Aspen interface in general was actually retrofit. They've got a lot of product out there in their Pro and other product lines that we wanted customers to be able to interface with. So it was really important to us not to require a software change on Aspen's product. So we, in communicating with them, we said, hey, look, we want to see your customers be able to add this capability, but we'd really like for them to not have to change anything in their Aspen, because now there's two of us having to change software and potentially hardware, and it's going to add cost and time to that development.
Right.
So we decided when in discussions with Aspen that it was easiest for us to make those changes and to start small and add things like we initially did. We're adding that heading bug capability and the ability to do the baro and altimeter sync across from the Aspen, as well as that GPS steering pass-through. So we added those three things, and that just required a little bit of software change on our side. Very minimal, actually, because we'd already done a lot of those interfaces in the experimental market with other products out there. So it really lets us hopefully keep the time to market and cost down. We're doing this software update for free to all of our existing customers, and so they'll just be able to add a few new wires to their Aspen and away they go.
It's interesting because there was a time also not too long ago when Autopilot and software were not terms that you heard very much in the same sentence.
Well, and if you did, it was usually some other choice words that were interfaced there as well, yes, for sure.
So how has that technology in the last 5 years, say, really made that transition over to a more software-driven technology?
It's almost imperative now, at least from my standpoint, that an Autopilot be software-driven, because it lets us interface with so many different products and aircraft and airframes without having to change our core product. The same Autopilot that can fly a 172 can fly a PA-32, and in the experimental world can fly a J3 Cub, or could fly a, we've flown Learjets and Evolutions and things like that. So, and that's all with one core set of hardware and software. Now, the servos may change in some of those installations, but that's more of a installation design specific thing. So for us, the software and the ability to adjust gains in that controller in a very simple user setup is really, really important to save us customer service and to save the installer a lot of time as well.
Do you also have envelope protection and those kinds of things built into that software?
We do. We've added several new features in the protection market. The Autopilot's always been equipped with what we call minimum and maximum airspeed. So we won't let you underspeed or overspeed. We're going to let you stall. We set that at 1.3 VSO on the bottom end and 0.9 VNE on the top. And then we've also added, of course, the emergency level, the little blue button of fear. If things go really wrong, push the blue button, and the Autopilot goes to wings level and 0 vertical speed. One of the kind of neat things we've done in the Vision Autopilot is we've taken that emergency level mode and we've after 10 seconds, we drop back into track mode. So instead of just continuing to hold what you're doing, we drop back into track mode and give you the ability to fly a selected track to get yourself out of trouble. The Certified Vision Autopilot adds yet another safety feature, what we call AEP. And that lets, actually you can turn this feature on and off. You can be an Airbus or a Boeing captain, whichever you choose, and have the additional safety there. But the autopilot can monitor the bank angle of the aircraft. And if we sense the bank angle get over 40 degrees, we actually engage the roll servo with a lower than usual torque and provide corrective force into the control system. The neat thing about, because we're a stepper motor driven system and some of the system design stuff, it almost acts kind of like a stick shaker, and it kind of ratchets the controls in the pilot's hands. And so it's really designed as a feature to break that chain of thought that, hey, I'm concentrating maybe on the ground, I'm doing that base to final turn, you know, those turns around a point, when I'm not paying attention maybe to what the aircraft might be telling me. So it's really there just to alert the pilot. Now it does, like I said, provide that corrective action, but it's there to alert the pilot that, hey, you're getting in a dangerous situation, maybe you should pay attention.
Basically, it's a little sensory feedback for the pilot to say something might be going wrong very quickly.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And we're actually excited about some other things that we might be adding safety-wise in that same domain in the future.
I think they call that in the business a tease.
Oh, maybe just a few here and there.
You mentioned that's for the input correction or reminder, I guess, if you will, for kind of a VFR pilot. How does that extend into the IFR realm?
Well, that's it's the same kind of thought process there, although the IFR pilot is really trained to not let the airplane get to those situations as much. So our real objective with some of these safety features does have that VFR pilot in mind. That accidental VFR to IMC is really what we're trying to address with a lot of this. The IFR pilot, obviously, it's an important tool for him because it's going to give him a break. He can, or she can, make that cross-country flight and arrive at the destination prepared and ready to fly that approach. If you can fly 5 hours cross-country and you didn't have to hand fly in the soup the whole time, you're going to be more equipped to continue to fly the aircraft and make the safe decisions that are necessary than if you've been hand flying that entire time. So absolutely, it's certainly a good tool for that pilot as well.
We had a question from someone who's watching us online asking what's the status of your Eco product?
That's a good question. Eco is paused. I will say paused, not dead. We actually are continuing development of that in some other areas. We're working with our partner on that level, and there is probably some movement coming on that here middle of the year. We're looking at what the possibilities are there. It probably won't make it to the certified market, simply because the cost to do so is more prohibitive than we might have hoped for that kind of product. But our vision for it is certainly to have a home in the experimental market.
And what is it? I'm not familiar with it.
Eco's kind of a new concept on how to fly an aircraft. Not really new. It's been done for many, many years. But in the light world, it's kind of a new concept. It's a trim tab style autopilot where we put a secondary tab on the control surface and use that as our servo. So it's a small servo driving a tab, and we let the wind loads actually move the control surface for us. It creates the force there. So that's a concept we've really enjoyed playing with and working with the folks on that, the folks at Level, on that product. And like I said, at Sebring this year, we sat down with Ruben at Level and talked about the possibilities of that product. And we've got some neat ideas on how that can probably move forward here in the near future.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, Andrew, but thank you very much for taking some time to come over and talk with us.
Sure.
Sounds like you had some exciting things, and we'll obviously keep an eye on you in the future.
Good deal. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Jim Campbell will be back with you talking with Hal Shevers, the founder and chairman of the Sporties Foundation. That's coming up for you right after this from the MGM Grand Convention Center in Las Vegas, Nevada on the Aero TV network. We'll be right back.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 61st Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Las Vegas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Avionics is the pilot-centric innovator. If you look at Avionics' 20-plus year history, we had the first moving map, full color, that had everything on it. We were the first ones to do a primary flight display for general aviation. Avionics has lots of opportunities and things in the works that will continue the leadership role we played in the past of coming up with new concepts and always having the best user interface to them.
A new high-powered version of our popular USB charging ports. The TrueBlue Power TA202 series high-power USB charging port simultaneously provides 3 amps of power per port, offering an extensive list of single and dual USB Type C and Type A configurations. The TSO-certified TA202 powers current and next-generation personal electronic devices, including phones, iPads, and laptops. Available from your local Avionics dealer.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
Are you stall smart? Ever since Orville and Wilbur took to the skies, pilots have been taught that the more airspeed you have, the better off you are. But over the last 100+ years, we've learned that's not always the case. Take stalls, for example. The common belief is that if you have sufficient airspeed, the aircraft won't stall. The fact is, an airfoil always stalls at the same critical angle of attack in relation to the relative airflow, regardless of airspeed, configuration, or weight. Learn more at aspenavionics.com.
The dream is real, a truly affordable personal jet aircraft. The Subsonics Personal Jet Kit is priced at only $42,000. Kit plus engine is still under $100K. Add instruments, upholstery, and paint and you're flying. It's time to put your money where your bucket list is. Learn more at sonicsaircraft.com.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
The Bristol Light Sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin Avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today. Based on the popular Sling 2 LSA, the Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight 4-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com.
Sandia introduces the new SAI 340 Quattro TSO'd airspeed, attitude, altitude, and slip. With integral backup battery, safety never looked so good. See it now at www.sandia.aero.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
Alrighty, folks, we are back. We're in our last segments of the 61st Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. So far, by the way, if anybody's keeping count, I've got the same amount of money I started with except for dinners and so forth and so on. So we're in good shape. However, let's get down to the important stuff. Following this interview, we will have part 1 of the Paula Dirks interview that we conducted yesterday, which will discuss the future of avionics technology, where our technicians are coming from, training, scholarships, education, and so forth. But in the meantime, I'm pleased to present Hal Shevers, and we're not going to talk about Sporty's Pilot Shop. Sorry. We're going to talk about Sporty's Foundation. I work with a lot of interesting organizations, and when they're talking about building bridges to the public and doing charitable work, there's always this overhead and cost and so forth. And the thing that amazes me every time I look at the yearly statement from Sporties is that whatever comes in goes out. Tell me how you came up with the Sporties Foundation and how you were able to pull this off.
Well, first thing is I owe the Boy Scouts more than I can even pay them back. And I was invited to be on the Boy Scouts board in Cincinnati and accepted that, maybe 30 years ago. And from there, it's just more fun to give than it is to receive. And we've looked at, I've looked at a lot of charities, looking at their IRS Form 990, and realized there are so many charities that aren't really that charitable. No. So we have the Sporties Foundation, and you're right, 100% of the donations go out. The Sporties Foundation doesn't even pay for a postage stamp. It's all covered by Sporties itself. And on top of that, Sporties donates $10,000 a month to the foundation. The foundation has other donors, the biggest one being Sandy and me, but we've got some other very nice donors. They recognize that it's 100% getting mostly the kids. And that's what we're about. We're about the next generation of flyers and the people who design, build, and maintain the aircraft we fly.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting about it is this seems to be a personal effort. There are people in this world that expect something for doing good things, and they're just people who go out and do the good things. In my experience in watching what you've done with it, and also keeping in mind that one of our projects actually benefited from contribution from the Sporties Foundation, which was the memorial live stream of the Bob Hoover Memorial Celebration. I'm really kind of amazed that you can pull this off in this day and age. It's obviously from the heart, but what drives you?
I don't know. I wish I knew. It must have been the way I was brought up or something. It's I just feel Sandy and I have been extremely lucky. We've never inherited a thing. Mm-hmm. We're still waiting. I don't think. I think that's all gone by. I don't think we're going to ever inherit anything now. But we want to take care of the next generation. Then we do have other favorite things besides the kids. Besides aviation exploring, which is part of the Boy Scouts, used to be the Air Scouts, and then Young Eagles, of course. We just went through the 50,000th Young Eagle to sign on to Sporties Learn to Fly course, and but that's not through the foundation, that's Sporties itself. And you look at our annual report, and you'll see, this year's annual report, I think we bequested $400,000, but we had an exceptional year. And that won't happen. I don't think that's going to happen again, but then there's the money Sporties gives, not through the foundation, and also Sandy and I do our share. But there are other things we like besides just the kids, like everything from the War in the Pacific Museum in Germantown, Fredericksburg, Texas, the Air Force Museum, Dayton, Ohio, a project like you have, a Bob Hoover book. I mean, that hits the heart, that hits home.
Well, Sporties has been virtually an institution in this industry for quite some time, and I would imagine that the notoriety and the legacy that you've established in this business, and now with the foundation, we get a lot of attention from people. How do you decide where to give and who to work with in regards to the foundation?
Well, a lot of it just comes from your heart. Once again, it's people write, we have people say, well, I want to put on a program in Podunk such and such, and I need $300 to do it. That's one of the easiest things in the world to do. Just fire out $300. Hey, let's see what they come up with. You can just risk it on that 300, 500, 800.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what little programs go on in the United States with some guy that's his heart feels good also and about a project, and he makes it happen at a very low budget.
Mm-hmm. Now you get assistance though. I mean, there are other people that are donating to the Sporties Foundation. Is that correct?
We do, and want to thank them very, very much. There are probably another 40 people who donate to the Sporties Foundation, and that probably comes up to close to $40,000 or $50,000 per year. And we'd like to make it more. Scholarships. Well, today I know a check went out to the Boy Scouts of America for $60,000 in scholarships for aviation explorers. And this, and it's not just for pilots. Obviously, it's for mechanics, something in aviation. And these, it breaks up into maybe 10 different scholarships. The best one is $10,000 a year for 4 years, and we send the money to the schools. And the schools are very good on this. Let's say a kid doesn't matriculate, the money comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the way we want it. We want to make sure it really gets used for the proper purpose. Another thing we do, which I really like, right here at AEA, there are 2 $5,000 scholarships for AEA, an employee of an AEA company to get a recreational pilot certificate, or at least 5,000 will cover them to solo. We do that for women in aviation and a few other organizations.
Outstanding. Do you know my connection, by the way, with aviation exploring?
No, I do not.
When they first established the aviation exploring division of Boy Scouts of America, they held at that time this National President's Congress, where the presidents of all the explorer posts around the country would meet in Washington, D.C. This was the first year that aviation exploring existed as its own separate division. They elected 4 national officers from among the presidents of those groups.
Okay.
And I was one of the vice presidents selected. I forget how old I was. I was in my early teens. I came out of the Explorer Post in Teterboro, New Jersey, and stayed close to the program. And of course, it did me a world of good throughout the years. And it's one that I've greatly enjoyed watching over the years, and also meeting up with people from throughout the community that were affected by aviation exploring. It was pretty cool. I remember Jeff Light was president, and it was Jerry Keenan was one of our other VPs, and it was just an extraordinary group of people to work with, especially for a young kid who was barely driving at that stage of the game, and pretty cool. So I'm glad you selected an affiliation with aviation exploring. It's been near and dear to my heart.
So this must have been back in the 80s or late 70s, or I don't want to divulge how your age, but
let's see, this would be 70, 76, 77, 78 in that time period.
Now, aviation exploring was a lot bigger, and and we had a fatal, I think, in 1984, and the Boy Scouts dropped the whole thing. There was no flying for 20 years. And we at least have a flying policy for the kids now.
Good.
And of course, they can individually, you can take the kids over and get them a Young Eagles ride.
There you go. Good stuff. Tell me about the Young Eagles program that you're working with them. That's turned into something huge. You said, was it 50,000 now? That's a lot of kids.
Well, there are 2 million that have, over 2 million have had a Young Eagles ride, but 50,000 of them have signed up for Sporty's Learn to Fly course. It all worked, the way it worked out, there was a gal up at Oshkosh. Her name was Katrina Bradshaw. Wonderful, actually she worked out of the Washington area, but she came to us and said, oh, this is in 2009. She came to us and said, how about giving 10 of your courses and we'll get them at random for the Young Eagles. And I said, well, we're just about to have our course on the web. We're that close. And you got to remember, the DVD was 2001, and now this is 2009. And we're saying, I said, if this works out the way I think it will, we can give it to all the young Eagles.
That must have gotten their attention.
It definitely did. But going back further with the young Eagles, I remember at Oshkosh, Tom Poberezny called me into his office, and during AirVenture, it wasn't called AirVenture yet, but he had a little office in a little dirty old building next to the old exhibit buildings. So I went in there, and he said that he had this idea of giving these kids a ride, and we're going to do 1 million of them. And I'm going, sure, Tom, You know, that's what's going through my mind. Yep. But anyhow, he told me more about it, and I said, well, we're certainly in. And I think we made a donation towards getting it started and continued. And then we came up the Young Eagles Lodge, which is up at Oshkosh. It's beautiful. The way that started, we wanted to do a lodge for aviation explorers. And Tom wanted it more EAA controlled, and can understand that. But anyhow, we made a $100,000 donation towards that lodge. Well, that was enough to attract Jim Ray, who has passed away recently. But anyhow, Jim Ray saw this project and saw there was $100,000 there, and wham, he pulled, it must have been $1 million or $1.5 million. That's one beautiful building.
Great effort, absolutely great effort.
But then moving on, Jim, over the years, this program's just grown and grown and grown. Now, when a kid comes in for his Young Eagle ride, along with the parental permission part, it runs through a computer in Oshkosh, which turns out the proper paperwork for them to get a certificate. Well, the certificate gets printed right at the point where the rubber meets the road, where the kid just got the ride. And then an email goes out to these kids saying, would you like to opt into the Learn to Fly course? And as I said, we've mentioned, the 50,000th one was last month.
Outstanding. That's the kind of impact that it'll take a few years to really see it, but it's going to be phenomenal as it manifests itself in the real aviation community as these kids mature, as they grow up, as they take on, or as many of them will, take on flying careers. That's got to be immensely satisfying.
It is. You go through the course, and when you get to a certain point that you could take a written examination, the written examination gets paid for by others. And then when you get to a point where you could actually get a pilot's license, you're of age and ready, you can get a free first flying lesson. Then if you get in the aviation exploring program, there are other opportunities through there. As I say, there are going to be $60,000 worth of them.
Outstanding.
Now there aren't enough kids that complete the course, and I have trouble finding out. I've had trouble finding out what the number is, but no matter what it is, it's not enough.
Never.
That's the way I think.
I hear you. So where do you take the foundation from here?
I think we're going to keep it small and very direct. If we try to grow it too much, we're going to end up with a thing called overhead.
Yeah. Oh no.
You know, as long as I can keep doing
no overhead.
Right, no overhead. As long as I can keep doing it more or less on my own, and with some of the people that work part-time, there'll be no overhead.
Outstanding. That's just a great story. I wish it was told a little bit more. Excuse me.
Now, a question people often ask me is, when did I get my love for aviation? And the answer is in the womb.
Yeah, oh, tell me about it. It's always there, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I know people acquired along the way, but I'll tell you what, I know from my earliest days, if there was an airplane overhead, I looked up. I mean, from the time I could raise my head, I guess. And thankfully, my pop would take myself and some of my brothers and sisters out to the local airport and watch the airplanes take off and land. And my brothers and sisters weren't that entertained, but I sure was. And pretty cool, pretty amazing what kind of impact and what kind of life it gives us. I mean, I look at people who do the 9 to 5 thing. To them, it's 9, 5, go home, do it again Monday through Friday, and try to find something to do on weekends. And I just cannot believe that kind of desperation. If you're an aviator, there's always something to do. There's always something to be interested in. There's always something to learn. Mm-hmm. And of course, you're part of a community. And it's amazing stuff.
It's pretty good. People ask me when I'm going to retire, and I tell them you'll read about it the day after I retire. It'll be in the obituary column.
People have asked me, I said, but when they close the lid. Yeah. There you go. Hal, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us. We sure appreciate it. Love the work that you're doing with the foundation. Let's you and I talk down the line about how we can help support, publicize, promote your efforts, and more important, get as many good people involved to help you do even greater things within the limits of trying to keep from having to incur an overhead.
Well, it's just been a wonderful life, and I think I only have another 30 or 40 good years, and I'm going to make the best of them.
I'll be right there with you, man.
Okay.
Deal.
Thanks,
all righty. Okay, folks, tell you what, we got a big treat for you. We are closing our interview coverage of the 61st Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show. We're going to end up here with part 1 of an intriguing interview with Paula Dirks, the president of AEA. As you know, AEA has celebrated 61 years in service to the avionics community. For Paula, that's 39 years of her life, over 20 in leadership. For the next year, we're going to be looking and monitoring the fact that Paula's decided that this is her last year. She is retiring. She's got grandkids on the way, and you know how that goes. But she will be working with a search team to find a replacement. And now we get to look at the work that she's done, the hope she has for the future. In part 1, we'll talk about education, we'll talk about scholarships, we'll talk about where the technicians are coming from, and some of the future aspects of where AEA can go. An amazing, vibrant, exciting, innovative, and even disruptive industry. Hope you enjoy it. We will be back tomorrow at 13:30, 1:30 Pacific time. We've got a phenomenal list of guests. I think our first one is Rick Perry of AEA, Mr. Washington, and we'll have a lot more exciting things to follow. So, closing out for our live coverage, this is Jim Campbell and Hal Shevers, and we look forward to catching up with you tomorrow at 1:30. But now, enjoy part 1, Paula Dirks, president of AEA, as she takes her final turn for the last year of her presidency. Oh, here we go again. We have finished 10 years of working closely with AEA, many years before that, with our live streaming episodes and so forth. And of course, one of the highlights of all this has been the opportunity for you and I to kind of really just plow through the industry, talk about what's good, talk about what's bad, and maybe do a little forecasting for the future. And now with most recent news, it's going to be a particularly poignant time to find out what's happening with AEA, according to you who have led the organization for decades.
Yeah, it has been, it pains me to say it, but it's been about 39 years since I joined AEA, right fresh out of college. Wasn't even looking into the aviation industry as a career choice. My background's public relations and journalism, but this is where I ended up. Best decision ever of my life, and it has been a wild ride, shall we say.
AEA has done an extraordinary job with a fairly small staff when you consider what's happening with the various organizations. How do you build an organization like AEA that serves so well and at the same time doesn't kill people in the process?
You know, Jim, it's the people. It's truly the people, not just the AEA staff, but the membership that we represent. We are but one small segment of the overall general aviation industry, and obviously we focus on avionics and instruments and the maintaining and installing and repairing of those avionics and instruments in the general aviation fleet. So we are a small community. And when you refer to the staff, obviously, thank you. I'm proud of the AEA. I'm proud of the organization and our mission, and extremely proud of the lean but mighty AEA staff. There are 10 of us. We also have a few international consultants because we now have members, company members in more than 40 countries around the world. So as you can imagine, trying to keep up on all the latest regulatory information from the various regulatory agencies around the world, that takes a while to do so. And we want to do the best job that we possibly can representing the members in those particular regions. But the culture of the AEA is a very friendly but business-like setting. We're also a very determined industry. You can't create this type of technology that we see in today's avionics and airplanes and aviation without having the dedication of a lot of different entities involved in our membership.
What are the milestones in your career that typify the growth and determination of the industry? And once we've gotten through all that, if you could have changed something, what would it have been?
Obviously, the technology is a huge change in the industry from 40 years ago to the present, from analog to digital, to the plethora of new avionics and instruments and technology that is out there, and then the new segments of the market that have come on in the last 40 years as well. But I also think a big driver, and probably some of the things that I look back on over 40 years, is our relationship with our regulators. Not only the FAA, but EASA, Transport Canada, Latin American region, South Pacific region. The willingness for them to understand that this industry is always in various modes of change, because new technology drives change. And it has taken a while, I will say that, but I would say in the last 8 to 10 years, our regulators are finally realizing that if they are going to keep up with the technology changes, they have to streamline some of their processes as well, whether it's in certification, approval issues, installations, and so forth. So not only I've seen a lot of change over the last 40 years in the various technologies, but I've seen change in our regulators as well, being able to adapt to our industry in a much smoother way, and truly in the last 8 to 10 years.
The industry is showing an extreme demand right now for technicians. For some reason or another, it's not a career choice that pops up very readily, and therefore we're hearing from shops that they're having a really tough time getting the kind of people that they want, or even finding entry-level people to train into the position. What's going to be required to be able to staff this industry?
It is a concern of everyone in our industry, and it is a big issue, and it's reaching out to, I started to say just young people. We will take any age. You know, there could be a middle-aged person wanting a career change, and this would be a wonderful job opportunity for them. But it is reaching out and making them, educating those possible job applicants to what this industry is and what the job entails. And I'm pleased to say that over the last 10 to 15 years, our industry is finally realizing they are worth something. They have the technical skills and knowledge that they are worth commanding a certain salary to be paid for their skills and their knowledge. And our industry is responding. That's taken a little while, but I think as the shortage continues to grow, both our shops and our manufacturers are realizing you're not going to find an experienced technician walking into your door each week saying, I need a job. You've got to go and you've got to hunt for those people, and you have to be willing to train an entry-level technician and raise them up on the job in the hangar and spend some time with them, bringing them up to speed on the technologies and the installation and maintaining of those pieces of equipment.
If you had a crystal ball, what would you want to see done with the future, and what are you doing right now to build a better future for the avionics industry?
One thing that we are doing, we spoke about the lack of avionics technicians entering our industry. So AEA has started a new program called AEA Career Pathways. And the very first element of the program, and it will build over time, this is just a brand new program, but we're trying to help our shops in small ways, but in significant ways, to help find that entry-level technician. So we're offering to, under our educational foundation umbrella, to underwrite the cost of them using Avionics News and our career section online for free advertising for entry-level technicians. And then even more so than that, once they hire that entry-level technician, part of our Career Pathways program is helping train those technicians. And so we will offer any AEA member shop who hires an entry-level technician during 2018, and I have a feeling we'll probably extend this program into 19 as well, but we will offer them the heavily discounted academic rate that we usually charge for a technical training class at our Derby Center for professional development. So that's one way that we're trying to build for the future, if you will, for our members.
What work are you doing right now to seek out the entrepreneurs, to seek out the next big business, to seek out the folks that have a toehold but haven't necessarily jumped all the way in?
Right. It's definitely a paradigm shift for our, and again, we talk change, but it's a paradigm shift for our association. Traditionally, we have always had our associate membership required that you are manufacturing certified products. And while it is still a stipulation to become a member, we are still broadening our horizons, and we are welcoming in those new manufacturers that have a wide array of non-certified products. One of the ways that we are trying to broaden our horizons and welcome in new non-certified manufacturers into the fold is to host a technology incubator. We had our first annual technology incubator last summer at our headquarter office outside of Kansas City, Missouri, and we plan to do the second annual this year, coming again in August in the summer. And we're inviting those new companies, those young companies that right now are currently producing non-certified products, and we bring them in. And we also bring in the FAA, the respective region or divisions of the FAA that is in charge of non-certified and certification of new products. And we bring them together, and that company can demonstrate their products to the FAA, and they can ask questions. We have testimonials from companies that are now AEA members that started as not traditionally non-certified product manufacturers, and they come in and give their testimonial of how they got started in the industry. So we realize that we have to change as well. We have to change with the times and look outside the box of what new technologies may be coming down the pike.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 61st Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Las Vegas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Avionics is the pilot-centric innovator. If you look at Avionics' 20-plus year history, we had the first moving map, full color, that had everything on it. We were the first ones to do a primary flight display for general aviation. Avionics has lots of opportunities and things in the works that will continue the leadership role we played in the past of coming up with new concepts and always having the best user interface to them.
True Blue Power Advanced Lithium-Ion main chip batteries feature proprietary nanophosphate technology. They deliver 3 times the energy density and are more than 40% lighter than lead-acid or NiCad alternatives. RTCA tested, FAA certified, available to OEMs today.
Are you stall smart? Ever since Orville and Wilbur took to the skies, pilots have been taught that the more airspeed you have, the better off you are. But over the last 100 plus years, we've learned that's not always the case. Take stalls, for example. The common belief is that if you have sufficient airspeed, the aircraft won't stall. The fact is, an airfoil always stalls at the same critical angle of attack in relation to the relative airflow, regardless of airspeed, configuration, or weight. Learn more at aspenavionics.com.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality, because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
The Bristol Light Sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin Avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
Based on the popular Sling 2 LSA, the Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight four-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
The dream is real, a truly affordable personal jet aircraft. The Subsonics Personal Jet Kit is priced at only $42,000. Kit plus engine is still under $100K. Add instruments, upholstery, and paint and you're flying. It's time to put your money where your bucket list is. Learn more at SonixAircraft.com.
Sandia introduces the new SAI 340 Quattro TSO'd airspeed, attitude, altitude, and slip. With integral backup battery, safety never looked so good. See it now at www.sandia.aero.